Yo, it's your boy Ryan, Northwest Sports Fanatics, back at you with a new video. Today is Sunday, December 21st, 2025, with your boy Ryan and the Northwest Sports Fanatics. Make sure you guys subscribe to the channel, smash that like button either now or on your way out. Donate to your boy if you can, Cash App, $ ORIONNWSF, or the YouTube Super Chat right here. We got Sunday Night Football with the New England Patriots versus the Baltimore Ravens. Kickoff is going to be here in roughly a minute or two. So let's cue up the music, take a look at the thumb, and let's get settled in for some Sunday Night Football. Happy Sunday, everyone. Stevenson, and on the right, one of the best quarterbacks in the game when he's healthy, Lamar Action Jackson. Let's get it, baby. Marine Bean in the building, what's good? TJ in the building, what's good? And apologize, I wasn't able to get everything kind of situated a little bit earlier. Thumbnail took me a little bit longer than anticipated, and I didn't know if I was going to make it in time, but thankfully with all the prep, I usually work pretty quickly, especially under pressure, and I'm happy to say that I'm here before kickoff. So it wouldn't have been that much later, maybe 5 minutes late, but again, we got it done. Origalis there, 65-yard kick, and that's going to turn into a touchback here for the Baltimore Ravens. And we know, Lamar's been injured. Again, the play calling and coaching has been suspect, for the Ravens. But again, this does give them an opportunity to be able to win out and claim a spot. Tampa Bay ended up losing against the Carolina Panthers. We know the NFC South is the worst division in football, as well as the NFC North. Steelers and Ravens, someone's got to make it. Panthers and Buccaneers, somebody's got to make it. And again, this is definitely going to be one of those games where, the backs are against the wall. And again, New England starting to see Buffalo gain some power after that comeback victory that they had, a few days back. So this is a must-win game, really, for both teams. It's for New England and their confidence, and for Baltimore to keep their playoff chances alive. First down and 10, Lamar. Nice pass there to Zay Flowers, and that's not something that you typically see to begin the game. Getting the ball to Zay Flowers early on the first play, 19-yard pass from Lamar Action Jackson. First down, Ravens flock. I see you. First down and 10 at the New England 46. Yeah, fantastic job for, the Jags, Toby. I watched a good chunk of that game. And again, the AFC, you got the Broncos and you got the Bills and you got the Patriots at the top. But the window is definitely, the gap is closed, between the Chargers, the Texans, and the Jags, and how close they are to the top three teams in the AFC. And it's very possible that, the Chargers, Texans, or Jags, could end up upsetting the Bills, the Broncos, or the Patriots based on how they've been playing lately. Derrick Henry runs off that right guard for a 3-yard gain. Jack Gibbons, the linebacker for the Pats, there with the tackle. And second down and 7, no huddle, shotgun set. And they go Derrick Henry again to the left side, 4-yard gain. Jack Gibbons, I see you. And that's going to turn into third down and 3 at the New England 39. Sarah in the building, what's good? I mean, you got to look at football, it's a week-to-week job, and again, you can look terrible one week and you can recover the next week. So, I mean, if we're looking at a full product, from the whole season on the outside looking in, yeah, there's going to be some games where people look a little suspect. But again, if you have defense wins games, defense wins championships. Ooh, nice throw. Lamar dancing there in the pocket. Zay Flowers again. And again, this might be one of the first games that I've seen with Baltimore heavily going to Zay Flowers early. And again, I like the success that I'm seeing here in Baltimore. Hawkins with the coverage, 18-yard pass from Lamar to Zay Flowers. And again, if you've noticed the games where they do well, getting their number one wide receiver going early, a big key. Normally they don't. and they usually go heavy Derrick Henry. Sometimes he fumbles, sometimes he doesn't, especially at the beginning of the year. And then again, you got the other tight ends, like Isaiah Likely and Mark Andrews. But again, you want to make sure you're getting your best running back the ball, but you don't want to get your number one wide receiver, limited touches. And there we go, rumbling down the sideline, touchdown, Derrick Henry. And that might have been the best opening drive the Ravens have had all year. Going to Zay Flowers, first down. Going to Zay Flowers, another big first down. And then just when you think they might keep throwing the football like in the past, no. Derrick Henry, 21 yards, great blocking up front by that offensive line, and to be able to cut back on the defense. New England does not give up too many rushing TDs throughout the year. And again, great execution, probably the best that I've seen from the Ravens in about a month. And again, this is exactly what you would want, with your backs against the wall, knowing that you have to win every game in the last 3 to be able to make the playoffs over the Steelers. Extra point is up and good. Tyler Loop, I see you. And just like that, 7-0 Baltimore. And for anyone that was kind of questioning, why are the Ravens at 7-7, 3-5 at home, the favorite on the Vegas line by 4 or 5 points over New England, who is 11-3 and 6-0 on the road. But again, we know that the Ravens are slowly but surely starting to pick up steam. And then now looking at that Vegas line, kind of starting to make a little bit of sense. Baltimore will play like the more desperate team, but New England, very good in offense, very good in defense, very good in special teams. Vrabel is a stud. Josh McDaniels is a great play caller. So again, Drake May has built a great relationship with his receivers and tight ends, as well as his O-line. I'm very interested to see what Drake May can do here and if they can respond with a field goal or touchdown on their first drive. And again, defenses, are going to have a little give and a little bit of take, but hopefully this game will have some good defense. We'll get some picks and we'll get some fumbles. You never know, maybe a blocked field goal or a blocked punt. You never know how things will shake out, but I'm hoping that we can get some great offense on top of some good defense. And again, I don't need to see a game being 13-10 and think that this is a complete game. I definitely want both of these teams in the 20s or 30s if possible. And again, great start for Baltimore, 7-0 Ravens. And we're going to be shooting for 100 likes, 100 on the Dono train, and 5 to 15 subs. Let's get it, baby. Bang. And we'll go over some of the scores that we had since we're on the commercial break. Hope everyone did well in fantasy, as well as, in the matchups earlier this morning and afternoon. Jags 34, Broncos 20. Kind of felt like the Jags had a very good opportunity to win that game. And obviously it shows that, hey, they're right there in the mix, with all the other top AFC teams. Congratulations. Duval, I see you. Steelers 29, Lions 24. Big upset victory for the Steelers. Huge win for them, keeping pace in the AFC North. Bills 23, Browns 20 when they had a big lead, but a win is a win no matter how you do it. Chargers 34, Cowboys 17, doubling them up. Nice job by the Chargers and Justin Herbert. Titans 26, Chiefs 9. Not only do they lose Mahomes in the previous week, they lose Gardner Minshew, possibly to ACL tear as well. 26-9, rough start there after the Mahomes injury from the Chiefs. Bengals 45, Dolphins 21. Saints 29, Jets 6 in the Battle of the Bads. Vikings 16, Giants 13. Big win for the Panthers, 23-20 over the Buccaneers with a late interception by Baker Mayfield. That one hurt. That one stung. And then the Falcons winning 26-19 over the Cardinals, and Texans winning 23-21 over the Raiders. And we already know the Eagles beat the Commanders 29-18 yesterday, and a huge win for the Bears, winning 22-16 over the Packers. And we're going to be doing Niners and Colts tomorrow, and I'm very excited about that. I like watching the Niners. I like watching the Colts. It would have been much more intriguing if Danny Dimes didn't get hurt, but I do think it would be a pretty competitive matchup, and definitely excited to see where things go here tonight. Hybrid in the building. What's good? Great start. That might have been the best opening drive that I've seen of the Ravens all year. going to Zay Flowers early and often, and then letting Derrick Henry get the touches, let the game come to you, instead of just heavily running with Derrick Henry and then punting, or going Henry, and then a wild throw to a tight end or Zay Flowers, and then you punt. So, again, very good execution by the O-line, Lamar, the receivers, and obviously complimenting Derrick Henry rumbling down the sideline. That's exactly what we wanted to see. Drake May, short right to Mac Hollins, who's been a good pickup for them. 7-yard gain. Humphrey with the tackle. Marlon, I see you. 2nd down and 3 at the New England 43. Ramondre Stevenson off that right tackle. Nice 6-yard gain. Humphrey and Smith with the coverage and the tackle. I see you, Marlon. I see you, Roquan. And again, the Patriots got a good two-headed horse. I can't wait to be able to see my favorite rookie, in the NFL this season, Ramondre Stevenson's backup, or, right-hand man, the Batman to the Robin. And obviously, when you see a guy from the Ohio State University and Travion Henderson, again, Abuka was great in the first month. Tyler Warren has been great for the Colts at tight end. But I think the guy that, ends up making more of an impact than any other rookie is Travion Henderson. In a lot of the games, he's not even starting unless Ramondre is injured. And we will see if he'll be able to get into the end zone here today and help the Patriots compete. Drake May going deep. Ooh! Big head there by Gilman, and Stephon Diggs getting up to the high point with that football. Drake May says, man, I'm happy to have you on my team. Great hit by Gilman. 25-yard pass from Drake May to Stephon Diggs. First down. Patriots, move the chains. Not JT in the building. What's good? FTD. For the dream. 7-0 Ravens. Yeah, but again, when you end up having injuries throughout the season, it was something that I really wanted to see Mike Evans, do, tied Jerry Rice, for so many seasons in a row with 1,000 yards or more. And, we've been lucky to not really have a whole lot of injuries, with Mike Evans prior to this year. And again, we got the names on offense and we got a few names on defense, but bottom line, O-line isn't good enough. Defense isn't good enough. Coaching isn't good enough. And Baker late in games, unfortunately, just hasn't been clutch. And losing by 3 to the Patriots, no. The Panthers hurt earlier this morning. Watch the whole game. We got the Dolphins next, a game that we should win. And then it'll come down to the last week of the regular season in Tampa with a rematch of the Panthers and the Bucks. And if the Bucks can end up winning the next 2 games, we'll still get in, with an ugly 9-8 record, but maybe the Panthers are more deserving. And a fake there to Henderson, direct snap to Ramondre Stevenson. And you never know what kind of plays that they're going to do. And I like when I see both backs in at the same time. You can run I formation or some trickery like that right there. And there are going to be times where Ramondre might actually hand it off to Travion Henderson. And again, one of my favorite 1-2 combos, for the AFC with their running backs. And again, if Stevenson goes down with an injury, no problem. You got the guy that kind of feels like might be one of the head candidates of Rookie of the Year, at least on the offense, with Tyler Warren. I wish I could say Ibuka would be in that mix, but since we got Evans, Godwin, and McMillan and all the other receivers back, he just doesn't get enough looks throughout the games anymore. When he was, starting and everyone was hurt, he blew up, in the first month of the season, but hasn't been as impactful since then. 2-yard run by Travion Henderson there. Kyle Hamilton, the Notre Dame Fighting Irish safety, over the top. 3rd down and 1 at the Baltimore 17. Yeah, awesome to see the Bears being able to make the playoffs. Love that. Anytime they can end up beating the Packers, anybody in that division, that'll definitely put a smile to my face. And on 3rd down and 1, hey, Josh McDaniels says, you know what? I got to be able to look over my play sheet here and let's call a quick timeout and talk it over. And I also kind of like, the misfits that you have with the Patriots and the wide receiving core and the tight end core. They may not have a bunch of big names other than Diggs, that are, fully recognizable maybe to the average fan. But guys like Mac Hollins and, Demario Douglas and a few of these others, they definitely have stepped up in big ways. Kyle Williams. So it's like, even though some of the other names besides Diggs aren't as recognizable, they played very, very well underneath this system with Josh McDaniels and Drake May at the helm. And again, it might not be everyone's, favorite type of football when they watch the Patriots playing, but they're damn good. Floater to Hunter Henry, and normally he makes that play 9 times out of 10. Good coverage there. Kyle Van Noy says, hey, I'm not going to let you score on me today, boy. 4th down and 1 at the Baltimore 17. And now if Drake May goes for a QB sneak, they can get this first down. Again, now do you end up playing it safe and take the 3? Or do you end up, trying to, take a gamble here and there throughout the game? And they do have the personnel and the O-line up front to be able to go for this and get it. But we'll see how aggressive they are. 4th down and 1, lining up like they're going for it. If you go QB sneak, you're going to get it. And there it is. I should be an OC. Drake May, 2-yard run right up the middle. He didn't even need a push, and he was going to get it. First down, Patriots. And normally, I'm the type of fan that I want to see a team play it safe. Take the points while they're there. But there also is going to be situational football in the first, second, third quarter that you may have to go for it on 4th down, or you feel that you need to go for it on 4th down. And, you have a good feeling with your O-line that they should be able to get you one. Now, obviously, if they would have gotten stuffed, momentum would have shifted very heavily to Baltimore. But I do agree with that 4th down and 1 call, especially with an athletic quarterback like Drake May. He can get 1 or 2. And then a little flip there to Travion Henderson, but great angle by Trenton Simpson, the linebacker. Cuts off, that running lane very quickly. 2nd down and 13 at the Baltimore 18. Less than 8 minutes to go here in the first quarter. 7-0 Ravens. And we saw Zay Flowers get the ball often in that first drive, which was fantastic. Good throws by Lamar, looking pretty comfortable in the pocket, even with all those injuries he's had this year with his legs. And then Derrick Henry finishing it off with the slam dunk and the touchdown down the sideline. 2nd down and 13 at the Baltimore 18 after that loss of 3. Drake May outside of the pocket, looking, trying to find a man, pump fake, and said, you know what? I'm not going to end up getting a sack or throwing a bad interception into double coverage. I'll just go out of bounds, and that's going to be 12 noon. You know what time it is? Time for a sack lunch. Yum, 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 yum. 3rd down and 14. Loss of 1 at the Baltimore 19. Yeah, hopefully Diggs will be able to return back into the game. But again, even if he isn't able to, they have plenty of other weapons to still compete and win, even if Diggs doesn't play. And normally you wouldn't be able to say that out of an offense, but you got Josh McDaniels and Drake May. Anything can happen. And on 3rd down and 14, avoids a sack lunch somehow, some way. Intercepted. And Marlon Humphrey going back into that soft zone, and Drake May got confused on that one. Big defensive play in Baltimore with their backs against the wall, knowing they have to win every single game in the last 3. And again, great job by the offense, better job even by the defense. Marlon Humphrey. And again, you don't really see guys get fooled too often, and you see Drake May, and just an underthrown ball, the booty, and that throw was booty. And a great pick there by Marlon Humphrey. Let's see if Lamar can end up punching it into the end zone to make it 14-0 or possibly 10-0. Let's go. Herbert got you at 30. How are you doing in fantasy? Like, what round are you in at this point in the season based on your league? Is it, championship week? Is it the semifinals? How many teams are left in the playoffs in your league? And then how are you doing? Do you have a chance to, win it all? Where are you sitting? 7-0 Ravens, 6:30 left in the first quarter. In a good one here on Sunday Night Football. Like, sub, donate, comment, share. If you haven't smashed that like button yet, please do. Help us get to 100 likes, 100 on that dono train, and 5 to 15 subs. Let's get it, baby. feel like the thumbnail came out well, even though it took me. And it gets stressful, with all the preparation. People don't really realize, when you end up doing a stream and, it ends up being like a 3 to 4 hour game, whether you're doing like baseball or football, the time that you have to put in to get everything set up, accurately, making the thumbnail and then setting up the stream and then, labeling the stream and then putting the tag words in and kind of making sure everything is lined up. It usually takes, an hour to hour and a half, of prep. And then sometimes the thumbnail alone will take an hour, hour and a half, sometimes as fast as 30 minutes or less if everything goes smoothly, with the program that you're using. But again, definitely I was cutting it close, and I'm just happy that I was able. I'm a perfectionist too, so again, I always try to make sure everything is lined up and things are symmetrical and things look good. And obviously, if I didn't care, about the thumbs and the presentation, then things would look a little bit more sloppy. But sometimes you got to take that extra time to make things look perfect. And I think the thumbs have been on point for quite some time now, and hope you guys enjoy them. Handoff up the middle to Derrick Henry, bouncing it off to that right side. Nice 5-yard run. Delani Tabai with the tackle there, the linebacker for the Pats. 2nd down and 5 at the Baltimore 9. I'll be rooting for you. I hope you make the championship game, and I hope you win it all. How does your roster stack up to the opponents that you're playing that are left? Do you think you actually have a chance with your roster, or are you kind of an underdog, hoping that guys have to blow up for you to win? Halfback toss to Derrick Henry, bouncing it to the outside and diving forward for that 1st down marker. 1st down, Ravens. Move the chain. 6-yard run there by Derrick Henry. 1st down and 10 at the Baltimore 15. Yeah, especially when that game went into overtime, 200-plus yards, 2 tutties, almost 50. Beautiful. Less than 6 minutes to go here in the first quarter. 7-0 Baltimore. Shotgun set. Keaton Mitchell getting an opportunity with the ball there. And a nice 5-yard run. Jalen Hawkins, the safety for the Pats, with the coverage and the tackle. 2nd down and 5 at the Baltimore 20. Looking forward to the Niners and Colts tomorrow. We'll have Tuesday and Wednesday off, and then we'll be back at it on Thursday for Thursday night football, which would be obviously Christmas. Keaton Mitchell off that right tackle and avoiding one tackle, but not the next. 3-yard gain. 3rd down and 2 at the Baltimore 23. Carlton Davis III, the former Buccaneer corner, with the tackle for the Patriots. Third down and 2. They decide to go to Keaton Mitchell again. 3-yard gain. 1st down, Ravens. 1st down and 10 at the Baltimore 25. Yeah, they don't really have a whole lot of options, in the running back room. But again, you can definitely tell based on that Jags game, if you caught any of it, the defense is great for Denver, most of the time. But again, if they do play an opponent that's hot, like the Jags, that are pretty good on offense and defense, it doesn't mean that Denver is just going to run away with it. And again, we've seen the Patriots lose to the Bills. Now we've seen the Jags, beat the Broncos. I don't know. It kind of feels like the Bills are the best team in the AFC. Even though the run defense is terrible, their secondary usually, plays like a top 5 secondary, but their, run defense is like bottom 3. So if you can run on Buffalo, you can beat them. But a lot of times you end up being down, and then in the fourth quarter, they end up abandoning the run, which plays right into Buffalo's hands. But, it definitely feels like it's up for grabs. But for the whole season, it was pretty much the Patriots and the Broncos. But I don't know, just kind of the feel. It might be Buffalo's, might be the favorite, even though we already know how good they've been over the last few years. Lamar to Mark Andrews with a beautiful 18-yard pass. First down, Ravens. Great blocking up front for Baltimore. And normally New England's in there with sack lunches and pressures. And, again, this is a great effort by the Raven O-line, giving Lamar plenty of time, good vision, good throw. And obviously the OG Mark Andrews might not be a top 3 tight end anymore, but he can still play like a top 10 tight end if you give him targets. And if you give him enough targets, 10 to 12, he might end up playing like a top 5, tight end in that particular game where he can end up scoring once or twice, no problem. He's got a good rapport with Lamar and a great job with deep throws to Zay Flowers, 2 big ones in the early part of the first quarter, and then another one almost 20 yards there to Mark Andrews. So I like what I'm seeing with the O-line, and whoever ends up winning the line of scrimmage is going to win the game. And most people would have assumed, that the Patriots O-line and D-line would win the battle. But early on, it's been all Baltimore, and they're definitely feeding off the home crowd. 7-7 record, but if they do win out, they will make the playoffs over the Pittsburgh Steelers. Like, sub, donate, comment, share. If you haven't smashed that like button yet, please do. Help us get to 100 likes. 100 on that dono train. And 5 to 15 subs. Let's get it, baby. And one of the reasons it took me a little bit longer to get situated was I was trying to find a fresh Lamar image where, the Ramondre Stevenson was very crispy, and I wanted to be able to try to find one, but it's not easy, trying to be able to manufacture, images and having them come out clean. But, I'm glad I took the extra time, and I'm really happy in the way that it turned out. And I know Hybrid is very happy, with what he's seeing at this point early on as every Baltimore fan, because again, they were a little bit too predictable, in previous games throughout the year. Lamar was hurt. O-line wasn't playing well. Defense was giving up points, and then they would just run the football a few times with Henry. Wild throw on third down. That turns into a punt. Or they would run 3 times in a row, not get enough, have to punt. Or, run the first 2 times, have it be 3rd and long, and then maybe get a first down. And then on the next drive, it stalls and then you punt. So to be able to, go with the deep ball and to be able to have that convert and then just let the running game kind of come naturally and not have to try to force, Henry to be like the guy that's going to get you the victory. And then obviously, as we know, early in the year, Derrick Henry had problems, King Henry, with fumbling. And again, he's been able to clean up some of those parts of his game. And then late in games, Baltimore really wasn't coached up, very well. The play calling and the coaching, by Harbaugh, the OC and the DC, it was a little suspect, on kind of the decision making. And again, it looks a little bit sharper here today, and they're going to need it to be sharp the rest of the season if they want to be able to stack into the playoffs with 3 consecutive victories. Halfback toss. And Derrick Henry trying to run over a couple Patriots, but Gibbons and Durden say, I'll hang on for dear life as he drags us out of bounds. 6-yard run, 2nd down and 4 at the New England 37. Yeah, I think Super Bowl definitely seems up for grabs. AFC, everyone is caught up to the top 3 teams, with the Broncos, Bills, and the Patriots. Chargers, Texans, and Jags are right in the mix. And then, you'll have Steelers or Ravens making it. And who knows what could happen if they play well, right? They could upset someone possibly. Fumble! And the Patriots recover. Wow. And just when we talk about Derrick Henry and his problems fumbling, didn't want to jinx him there. But just like that, we talk about the problems being somewhat fixed, as of late. But again, you got to be able to hang on to that football, King Henry. And let's see if he actually drops it or if it gets punched out here. And it was just a helmet right on the ball and then batted out by the second defender. Wow, Craig Woodson and Hawkins in there in the mix. And that was A great punch out with that left hand. And again, we know King Henry's got very strong arms and legs. So if you can get a helmet or a hand, to punch that out, that was beautiful. And hopefully, King Henry will be able to firm up those mistakes, because you're not going to be able to win games late if he's going to be fumbling. Weird timing about talking about the fumbling problems at the beginning of the year, and then he fumbles here. I was kind of hoping that he was past that, problem, but I guess not. But you also have to just give credit to the Patriots, and their defenders. Sometimes it's not really a King Henry thing. It's, a defender thing. Drake May, short left to Mac Hollins, 3-yard gain. Wiggins with the tackle. And that's going to be 2nd down and 7 at the New England 35. And obviously on the NFC side, Seahawks, Rams, Eagles, and then you got Bears and Niners and Lions and Packers and probably Panthers or Buccaneers. So yeah, it definitely feels like it is definitely up for grabs. Still think Seattle, Los Angeles and Philadelphia probably have to be the top 3 in the NFC. And then, you just don't really know what you're going to get out of the Niners, the Bears, the Lions or Packers. Sometimes they look great, other times not so much. And then obviously at the bottom, you wouldn't expect the Panthers or the Bucs to win a playoff game like the Ravens or Steelers. But again, you never know. 3-yard run by Drake May, scrambling to that left side. Green and Urban with the pressure and the tackle. 3rd down and 4 at the New England 38. 7-0 Baltimore. After a great first drive with Lamar going to Zay Flowers for a couple big gains and then getting Derrick Henry to rumble in for a touchdown. Second drive, Patriots punch that football out, and King Henry's fumbling problems continue to arise. Drake May, plenty of time in the pocket, making a sandwich back there. And then finally a flag comes out, and that's got to be holding on the offensive line. There's no doubt about that. But they're going to call defensive holding. Wow. And again, that could have been offensive holding, based on how much time Drake May had. Wow, what a shocker. But it kind of feels nice, when you just don't really know, like how it's going to shake out. Like, who, most people are feeling that the top 3 teams are in the AFC or NFC, but then the bottom 3 in the NFC and AFC, 4, 5, and 6 could get hot, at the right time. So it's going to be very exciting, not only there, but also in the college football playoff. And handoff to my favorite rookie in the draft class. That's not on my team, Travion Henderson there. And a gain of 6. And that will wind the clock down in a pretty exciting first quarter there between the Ravens and the Patriots. And again, New England known for offense, defense, and special teams. Ravens obviously on the Vegas line were favored. And again, they're definitely living up to it, with that first drive, not so much on the second with the fumble by Henry. But with that being said, if they can prevent from New England scoring a touchdown off the fumble or only giving up 3, that will be a success. And then hopefully Henry won't fumble the rest of the game, but you just never really know. And it's not like King Henry has had a problem fumbling throughout his whole career. It's kind of been like this year has been kind of like, maybe they saw something on tape, where if you, find the right angles on him, that maybe he's not as, strong with the football that he has been earlier in his career. But hopefully that'll be the only fumble for him here this evening. 7-0 Ravens. $63 subs to go to 23,400. Like, sub, donate, comment, share. If you haven't smashed that like button yet, please do. Help us get to 100 likes, 100 on that dono train, and 5 to 15 subs. Let's get it, baby. Ended up having, some good views, yesterday with the college football playoff, but actually on both games between, Oklahoma and Alabama, and almost hit 20,000 last night, which was awesome. Instead of, having, minimal participation. But again, sometimes, you end up getting these people that try to steal your content. And, we definitely smashed that and got that taken care of, during the live stream and whatnot. Crazy that people, would create a channel and then just, steal people's audio, put it on their channel and think that they won't get caught and whatnot. It's a little flattering, that they would use me, and my voice, for their stream and whatnot, for the audio and whatnot, and, and the music. But, if you want to be able to make it, on YouTube, you got to be original and you got to, put in the work yourself and not steal someone else's audio or video. Facts. 2nd down and 4, handoff up the middle and close to that 1st down marker for New England, but flag on the play. See what the marker is. And it still feels, with Indiana, Ohio State, Oregon and Georgia, those are the 4 favorites. I went back and watched the film, through Oregon in the second half on how they were giving up all those points. And they did actually put in a lot of the backups. When I was watching it live, it was kind of hard to keep up, to see if the secondary starters were in there, the D lineman starters and the linebackers, but they actually did funnel in a lot of the backups. And it definitely showed, we won the game, but it wasn't pretty, and we shouldn't have given up that many points to JMU, but it did give them, some good experience, for backups. So if, starters get hurt against Texas Tech or Indiana moving forward, that they'll have some experience. But again, we definitely have to play much cleaner, and we have to have the starters out there for pretty much the whole game, the rest of the way. Texas Tech, Indiana, and then in the Natty, if we can get there against Georgia or Ohio State. Shotgun set, Drake May, short right to Mac Hollins. And a nice catch there, 7-yard pass. 3rd down and 2 at the Baltimore 49. But even if it was backups, it still was not ideal. I get it. You got 2nd, 3rd, 4th stringers in there. But again, you're going to win the game. But again, overall, the vibe in the locker room is as if they were, got beat. And again, that's the kind of mindset Dan Lanning is going to, incorporate with the team, which I like. You can't be satisfied that you won. You gave up way too many fucking points in the second half, even if it was backups for some of those. And a little check down there by Drake May to Hunter Henry, a reliable tight end and check down machine. Simpson and Smith with the tackle there for Baltimore. 1st down, Patriots. Move the chains. Yeah, I think if I had to do the pecking order, on how, things are looking, it might go Bills 1, Patriots 2, and then maybe Broncos 3, until the offense can get better for Bo Nix. It doesn't have a whole lot to work with there. And, you definitely have seen them stall, lately. I still think they're very, very good, especially on that defensive side of the ball. But, I think the Bills and the Patriots are a little bit more well-rounded. But again, if the Denver defense goes off, that single-handedly could help them win games. So we've seen that already, in the regular season. And Travion Henderson gets clipped up by Kyle Hamilton. And that's going to turn into 2nd and 13 to 3rd and 13. And on 2nd and 13, Drake May looking and just throws it away. 3rd down and long here at the Baltimore 47. I think the Bills can beat anybody. I think Josh Allen is playing like he's, arguably the best quarterback in the league. He has been in the top 5 for a long, long time, right? James Cook, is playing like he's the best running back in the league or one of the top 2. And again, we know that, the defense, as far as run defense, they're not good. It's like bottom 3, but their secondary is usually top 5. So the Bills defense is kind of, a little shaky, but if that, is the one weakness that they have, not being able to stop the run, but you got Josh Allen and James Cook, I think most people would be happy, with those two guys. And a nice high throw there to Mac Hollins. 1st down, Patriots, move the chains. And again, there's not very many teams that could beat the Eagles, even though their offense hasn't been as good as it was last year with Saquon Barkley. But it does feel like, they're starting to kind of put it together, And again, you still got Jalen, you still got Saquon, you still got Devontae Smith, you got A.J. Brown, you got Dallas Goedert. Offensive line starting to get a little bit more healthier, and that was a big issue, the O-line not being able to block, for the running backs enough and giving enough time for Jalen. Defense has always been good, as well as special teams for Philly. But yeah, I do think Buffalo could beat Philadelphia. For sure, it would be a very close game. Can't wait to watch it. And Drake May going deep to Austin Hooper, the other tight end. First down, Patriots. And just like that, we got first down and goal at the 1, and they should be able to do a QB sneak here with Drake May or hand the ball off to Ramondre Stevenson or Travion Henderson for a touchdown on the next play. Yeah, I saw DK tripping at that fan and throw a punch. But again, even though the Eagles aren't as good as they were last year, they could still make the Super Bowl. We understand the Seahawks and Rams are better this year, but, again, we just don't really know how things will shake out and how the matchups are going to look. May, and look at that jump pass there. Hunter Henry, touchdown, Patriots. And for me, what I look for is I typically look for teams, that are well-rounded. Offense, defense, special teams, O-line, D-line, defense, coaching, play calling. And the more well-rounded you are, and especially if you have a defense, those are going to be the teams. And, Buffalo might be the exception where they don't have a complete defense. But again, what's, two things that the Bills have that no other team has? Josh Allen and James Cook. And again, those two guys single-handedly can, really dominate a game, maybe more than any other, combo at quarterback and running back this year. Extra point is up. And good. And just like that, 7-7 Ravens and Patriots. And this one could come down, potentially to whoever has the ball last, whoever wins, unless we end up having King Henry, fumble repeatedly. We thought that the fumbling problems, would be kind of over, and he had a problem within the first 2 months. Then kind of had a little bit of a break from some of the fumbles, but kind of ironic that we were talking about it. And then like 3 plays later, he fumbled again, but it really wasn't him dropping the ball. I mean, if you get someone to, make a fist and they punch it out, or you get someone diving with their helmet right into the football, sometimes it's more of like the defense made that play rather than King Henry just dropped it or, didn't hang on to the football, strong enough with 1 or 2 hands. So. Like, sub, donate, comment, share. If you haven't smashed that like button yet, please do. Help us get to 100 likes, 100 on that dono train. And 5 to 15 subs. Let's get it, baby. 7-7 Patriots and Ravens. And if you're just tuning in, Derrick Henry, 21-yard rushing touchdown with a Tyler Loop extra kick in the first quarter. 7-0 Baltimore on the first drive of the game for them. And then now Hunter Henry getting a touchdown pass from Drake May. Corey Gallus there with the extra point. Up and good. 7-7 Ravens and Patriots. But again, I think it's one of those things where you see the top 3 teams, whether it's, the Bills, the Patriots, and the Broncos, for now. And obviously you got the Jags and the Chargers and the Texans there for like the top 6. And then someone's got to make it between the Steelers and Ravens. And then on the flip side, you got Seahawks, you got the Rams, you got the Eagles for like the top 3. But then also you can't really, really bat an eye and say, well, Bears, right? Packers, Niners, Lions, and then you're going to get someone between either Panthers or Buccaneers. And even though that second tier for the NFC, may not be as strong, you've definitely seen the Lions not be as strong as they were in the last previous years. They've missed some pieces on the O-line, and they don't really feel like, I don't want to say the Lions window is closed, but they definitely aren't as strong as they were the last couple years. Still could be like a playoff team, but again, can they actually go to the NFC Championship game? And I feel like right now the answer would be probably no to the Packers, no to the Lions. And I feel like the Bears and the Niners, even though early in the year we didn't really know how good they would, really be, those are kind of like the wild card teams. You just really don't know, what version of the Niners or Bears are going to show up. And if they show up, they could end up upsetting someone. And then obviously the last spot will either be Carolina or Tampa. Carolina's got a defense. Tampa's got an offense. But, either one doesn't really have a complete team to win a game this year. So it's kind of like you get to the playoffs, and we're trying to win our 5th NFC South, title, but can we actually beat anybody? And the answer is no. We might not even make the playoffs, especially after losing to the Panthers, earlier this morning. So we'll see. We got the Dolphins and the Panthers, in the last 2 games. And, if we win, it'll be, 5th straight NFC South crown, which would be cool. But again, I would rather be a contender than a pretender. And unfortunately, just a pretender this year. Corey Gallus there, 65-yard kick. And that's going to be a touchback to the Baltimore 35. But again, you're starting to see, even though the Texans didn't really win, by a great amount against the Raiders, they still have a great defense. When you got Will Anderson Jr., you got Daniil Hunter, most teams would be drooling to have 2 guys that have 10 plus sacks on the line. And even though some games are closer than they should be, at the end of the day that they won. And then obviously the Chargers and the Jags are really starting to show that, hey, people talk about the Patriots and the Broncos and the Bills, deservedly so. But again, I think we need to start talking about the Jags and the Chargers a little bit more. And we know the Chargers typically choke in the playoffs, but maybe this is the year that they actually beat somebody. We'll have to wait and find out. And I like the way that the Jags are getting hot at the right time as well. Shotgun set, Keaton Mitchell off that right guard for a 1-yard gain. Gibbons and Durden with the tackle. 3rd down and 9 at the Baltimore 36. And it's all about getting hot and healthy at the right time, as everyone knows in college football and the NFL. If you can get hot and healthy at the right time, you don't have to be a 1 seed to be able to go all the way. And a lot of times the teams that were very, very good at the beginning of the year or even at the middle of the year may not be the team that represents the conference at the end of the year. Shotgun set, Lamar, deep right to Bateman, and incomplete. Christian Barmore there with the pressure. And that's 4th down and 9 at the Baltimore 36. So, again, we saw Baltimore look very, very good on the first drive, going deep to Zay Flowers, then getting the King Henry touchdown. But since then, we've had a King Henry fumble, and then now a punt here on the 3rd drive. So they need to get back to what was working. And, these last 2 drives are typically what we see out of Baltimore, where they have drives stall or they fumble. So what do they need to do? They need to be able to get the ball to Zay Flowers, and they need to be able to work it around to the tight ends. And then eventually, you can sprinkle in whatever you want to do with King Henry or the others. But, hopefully they'll be able to recover. Stout with the punt. And we got 10:21 left in the second quarter as that goes and gets downed at the New England 25. Shout out to my boy Brooks Beats with the best beats on YouTube. Like, sub, donate, comment, share. If you haven't smashed that like button yet, please do. Help us get to 100 likes, 100 on that dono train. And 5 to 15 subs. We got a great one here in the second quarter, 7-7, Patriots and Ravens. And a few subs since the last commercial break. 62 subs to go to 23,400. 11-3 Patriots, 6-0 on the road. Impressive. 7-7 Baltimore Ravens, 3-5 at home. But again, they were at the bottom of the division when Lamar was hurt, and now they have a very good chance to be able to kind of get caught up, with the Pittsburgh Steelers. And it's definitely going to be a battle, with both teams, just like it is going to be with the Bucs and the Panthers. It's going to come down to the last week more than likely. And, realistically, could anybody actually win a game, out of the bottom feeders of the league this year? Ravens or Steelers. And maybe it feels like, maybe the Ravens and Steelers, both of those teams have a better chance of winning a playoff game than the Bucs or the Panthers. But, Panthers defense is really good, for the most part. They just need to be able to get Bryce, a little bit more time. Tet McMillan has been great. That's been a great draft pick for them. Rico Dowdle has been a godsend for them, but they're just not as consistent as they would need to be. And then Tampa, we got a good offense, but the defense hasn't played well. Neither has the O-line. And it's been rough, watching, not only the collapse against the Falcons, but again, just not being able to do enough. And they had a pretty good game plan going into the game where they were going to try to rush the football 30 times. But later in the game, they needed to air it out a little bit more. But the offensive line wasn't able to give Baker enough time. And then Baker forced one late and it got picked off. And that was the end of the Bucs. So, and Mike Evans had a touchdown early in the game. But again, I think they just focused a little bit too much with the running game. They wanted to play a clean game after what happened the previous week against the Falcons. And for the most part, they did. But you got to have that good balance with the running and the passing. You can't be too one-sided. Never really works out when you end up going that route. %71% completion percentage for Drake May. And obviously, Josh McDaniels has a big part of that as well. Yeah. Crazy for Tomlin. I just wish that they could actually have, a few better, players at certain positions. Ben Roethlisberger's don't grow on trees, and it shows. 2nd down and 4 after that 6-yard gain on 1st down. And getting stuffed there. Stevenson gains 1 yard. Six for 7 on that last drive there for Drake May. 3rd down and 3. Shotgun set. May. Good protection up front. Great window. Great catch. Wow. 1st down, Patriots. Move the chains. And Stephon Diggs with a 33-yard gain there. 1st down, New England. And again, New England's style of play, is completely different than the Tom Brady era. And we didn't really know when they would actually have an identity, post Brady, Belichick, and Gronk. But again, the offensive line does a great job. You got one of the best play callers in the game in Josh McDaniels, and Drake May is, feeling very comfortable in his own skin. And it shows. A very dominant team in 2025, the New England Patriots. Shotgun set on 1st down and 10. May steps up in the pocket, goes to a little check down there. And Travion Henderson almost with the 1st down. Less than 8 minutes to go. 2nd down and 1, 7-7, Patriots and Ravens. And 2nd and 1, Drake May. 1st down, Patriots. Move the chains. And I remember when, Diggs ended up signing the deal, to New England at the beginning, of that, time period and whatnot. And it was kind of like, why would you go to New England? But obviously it's been a good pickup for them. And, they've drafted very, very well, brought in the right free agents the last few years. Everything is just coming together for them. But again, getting Vrabel was, very big. It's like sometimes you want to go with guys like Mayo, who was a part of the organization or, before, but you got to find the right personality, that the players can match and vibe to. Oh no, Travion Henderson is down. Hopefully he's okay. Now he's starting to get up. 7 tutties for Travion Henderson. All right, we got an injury timeout. And we'll see if ESPN can, do their job and update things that they need to update. Can always count on them on, having things being behind at some point or another. University in the building with a $2 holla. Appreciate you. Stacks. Racks with a little. Cactus Jack. Bang, bang. Appreciate you. $2 holla. 98 to go to hit the goal. Appreciate you. See if we can find a Tony Eason photo for you. All right, 2nd down and 9. May steps up in the pocket and caught from behind. Nice tackle there, shoestring tackle. 12 noon, you know what time it is? Time for a sack lunch. Yum, 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 yum. Drake May's got good size. He's not the fastest quarterback, but still has pretty good deceptive speed, for a QB. And again, there's going to be times where he's going to have to be able to run for big first downs and to extend plays. And normally doesn't get caught from behind too often, but great form tackle there and a great job by the Baltimore defense. 2 sacks for Baltimore already, which is shocking. 3rd down and 12. And timeout Patriots. ESPN frozen for 5 minutes. Come on, ESPN. Steve Grogan as well, when you think about those old school quarterbacks of the Patriots. Third down and 12. Drake May, floater, and incomplete. See if there's any yellow on the field. No late hit on Drake May, even though Vrabel is contesting some kind of penalty. University with another $2 holla. Appreciate you. Stacks. Racks with a little Cactus Jack. Bang, bang. We're at 4. 96 to go on the Dono train. We'll see what other photos of Eason I can find for you. Appreciate you. And once we get into halftime, obviously we'll have a few minutes, 12, to kind of go over the highlights of some of the other games, and we can throw up some photos as well for the people that are supporting, like University. Appreciate you. Borregales, 45-yarder, kick is up, and right down the middle, and good. 10-7 New England. I love, when we end up getting, old school fans, from, the 50s, the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, the 90s. I love the old school era. And I love it when we can go back into the black and white. See if we can find a couple old school football cards from my childhood. There we go. Go with one tops. I got a better one here. We can go pro set. A very iconic look. Still one of the best, throwbacks, in my opinion. Top 5. Especially with the image of the Patriot there on the helmet. Another clean tops card from back in the day. Let's see if we can find the score. There you go. You got to do the trifecta. The scorecards, from back in the day, very popular. Tops cards. I remember going to Circle K, and my dad would get a big gulp, and he would say, "Grab some, football cards." And I'd definitely grab a few packs here, a few packs there, and all 3 of those. Pretty sure I had, all of those, back in that time period. Late 80s, early 90s. Very cool. Even though a lot of the junk wax era stuff isn't worth a lot of money, compared to a lot of the, high-end cards, the one-of-ones and the Pokemon craze and whatnot. But still, for a lot of us OGs that are 40 and up, that collected those cards when we were kids, yeah, some of them may not be worth a whole lot, but it's about the memories, about collecting back in that time. And again, sometimes that's more than just the value of the cards, themselves. Like sometimes, I'll just go and look at my childhood binders, of old school football cards or baseball or basketball or hockey, and just kind of reminisce, based on, those days. And obviously you have a few of them in there, if you're lucky enough to, have gotten like a Barry Sanders rookie or Troy Aikman and whatnot. But, even for some of the quote unquote, jobbers, that were in the league, it's still pretty cool to be able to see the looks of the, cards and how they've evolved to what they look like now. Borregales there with a 65-yard kick, touchback to the Baltimore 35. And it's been very competitive here, 10-7 New England. Hope you enjoyed those. And again, I try to find stuff that fits the screen. Obviously, when it's football cards, it's only going to take up so much of the screen. But obviously, for a lot of the other old school photos, they'll only fit so much. But I try to make it as clean as possible if I can find them. All right, 1st down and 10. Hand off to Derrick Henry. Hopefully, he doesn't fumble again and keeps 2 hands on the ball that time. 6-yard run. Jelani Tavai, the linebacker for the Patriots, with the tackle, as well as Jack Gibbons. Shout out to my boy Brooks Beats with the best beats on YouTube. We got about 5 minutes left here before halftime in a very exciting game. 10-7 Patriots. And again, the Raven D isn't as good as it used to be. The offense isn't as good as it used to be. Lamar's been hurt. Coaching has been a little suspect for Harbaugh, as well as the offense and defensive coordinators throughout the year, hence the 7-7 record. But they do have a chance to win this game if, they can prevent King Henry from fumbling, the rest of the way. And Henry stuffed up the middle. No gain. Tonga and Tavai there with the double tackle. 3rd down and 4 at the Baltimore 41. And just like I mentioned, at the beginning of the broadcast, how you end up, being dominant with Baltimore, you throw the football. Again, instead of going heavy with Henry, or any of the other guys in the running back room, like Mitchell, you need to be able to find the ball to Zay Flowers. He's the key. You get the ball to Zay Flowers, then Mark Andrews, Isaiah Likely, guys like that. That opens up the rest of the game for Bateman and then the running backs. But if you're going to go running back heavy, and just as we say that, what do? I say we need to get the ball to Zay Flowers. Cue the text message, boom, going into Lamar, bang, right to Zay Flowers, 6-yard pass, 1st down, Ravens. I mean, really, the offense doesn't flow through Henry like you think it would in previous years. It flows through Zay. And in the games they get Zay the ball a lot, they win. In the games they don't get him the ball, guess what? They lose. And again, you still want to make sure you're not ignoring your tight ends as well. Shotgun set, Lamar going deep to Mark Andrews, and incomplete. But again, Lamar starting to kind of get the idea, on where they need to go. And again, if you can find the open lanes for Zay and Mark Andrews, even though Andrews may not be as good as he used to be, definitely a guy that can bring the emotion out and then help move the chains. And then eventually you can go to Mitchell and Henry and the other running backs. But, it's not really the strong suit that people think, especially with Henry's fumbling problems in 2025. And let's see if Lamar can keep going to Zay. Again, it's going to be a mismatch regardless, unless we're talking about a guy like Christian Gonzalez, who is one of the best corners in the game from Oregon for New England. But, even with that being said, Zay is special. 2nd down and 10, shotgun set. Lamar. And he says, hey, I'll decide to take this myself. Not a whole lot of room. And then with that hamstring, as you're noticing, Lamar doesn't run the football as effectively in the open field, prior to the injury. Obviously the injury with that hamstring, and look at the injury report for him: hamstring, knee, ankle, toe, ankle, and then illness. So again, his legs are really what makes Lamar, besides his arm, obviously, right? And, we know Josh Allen and Jalen Hurts are a good two-way threat. Lamar normally is, but, Baker Mayfield may have taken his spot as being one of the top 3, dual threats as far as being a passer and a rusher this year. But if Lamar has an open lane, he can still get there. And there, DeAndre Hopkins, the OG vet, 8-yard pass, 1st down, Ravens. Move the chains. You got Hopkins, you got Bateman, right? You got Flowers, you got Andrews, you got Likely. Throw the damn football. And then eventually at some point, if you need Lamar to run, he's not going to be able to run away from anyone, with all these injuries to his legs. But, if we're talking about 5-10 yards, he might be able to juke the first guy, but really isn't able to run away from the 2nd and 3rd guy like he used to. Jackson, short middle to Charlie Kolar, 3rd tight end. Nice catch there. Hawkins with the tackle. 1st down, Ravens. And it feels like they finally got the message. First drive, great. 2nd and 3rd drive stalls. They get back to passing the football, which is what they're best at right now at this point in the season. And now you're starting to see them move the chains. They get way too predictable when they run the football. And again, it's not the same impact that they had because Lamar can't run, Henry fumbles, and then with Mitchell, you're only going to get so much, based on his skill set. So nice to be able to see, they're starting to realize, okay, this doesn't work. Let's shift the, kind of the strategy. And if they keep going at this pace, we're going to have a 10-10 tie or possibly a 14-10 Raven lead at half. Let them know, TJ. Like, sub, donate, comment, share. If you haven't smashed that like button yet, please do. Help us get to 100 likes, 100 on that dono train. And 5 to 15 subs. Let's get it, baby. Shout out to my boy Brooks Beats with the best beats on YouTube. Yeah, it did go through. I just didn't get a chance to check my phone there. Appreciate you, TJ. Every dollar counts. TJ with a 3-er. And again, every dollar matters. Stacks. Rax with a little Cactus Jack. Bang, bang. Appreciate you. Anything photo-wise you want to be able to see, like JSN, let me know, and I got you. And again, whether it goes to the internet fee, the streaming fee, helping me buy dog food for my pup, just the basic necessity things that I need to be able to do this month in and month out. And obviously I appreciate it. Every dollar matters a lot more than people think. And then obviously once we get into, March, until October, November, we'll be doing heavy Mariners. And I imagine that we'll be able to, get some good numbers to spike, and we're going to get some great growth, just like we did this previous season in the MLB. But again, just because most people know me through the Mariners and the MLB and maybe through the Oregon Ducks and college football, there's a lot more people that do NFL than baseball or college football. But again, not everyone can do it the way that we do it here. And I feel that if we actually got more eyeballs on the product, they would realize that, there's going to be some people that have really, really big sub numbers and a lot of people in the room based off popularity. But sometimes popularity only gets you so far. First down and 10 at the New England 23, 10-7 New England with a 2-minute warning. Let's see if the Ravens can punch it in. Plus I got an advantage pretty much over almost every other streamer that's out there, doing phone sales for half of my life with big companies. So, I feel very comfortable on the microphone. It almost feels like second nature, especially when I had to do a lot of those big accounts, from rude people in Boston and New York, setting them up with cable internet and phone for their businesses. And, if you can get through to the rudest people on planet Earth, again, you can do anything. 3-yard run by Lamar. And Craig Woodson, the safety for the Pats with the tackle. 2nd down and 7 at the New England 20. And it is one of those things where, a lot of people are specialists and they're good at like one sport, but they may not be as good in others. But I feel, we're very well-rounded here, that, I don't really feel uncomfortable in any aspect of the game. And Mitchell goes to that right side and Gibbons says, "You're going out of bounds. You're not getting yardage. Loss of 5. 3rd down and 12 at the New England 25. And then we get a timeout here by Baltimore as the drive is stalling. Why are we running with Mitchell when we can throw the ball to Zay Flowers or Mark Andrews? Hello? And again, really Baltimore's problem besides King Henry, it's the play selection. It's the coaching by Harbaugh and the OC and the DC. For me, I feel like they are the best team with, the players that they have that don't have the coaching to match, and I feel like that's what's really held them back from being in the Super Bowl. We know the Chiefs and the Bills have been very, very good. But again, I feel coaching and play calling has been their bugaboo. And they're not very good in the second half, and their decision-making and their play calling late in games is probably the worst out of all the good teams in the NFL lately. And, if they can improve, I'm not saying that they should fire Harbaugh, like today, but again, they definitely need to get better coordinators on offense and defense. And Lamar goes to the sideline wincing, and they have to bring in Huntley, and we'll see how long Huntley comes in on 3rd down and 12. Now you just got to go up to Zay Flowers and hope that he catches it. 3rd down and 12. They just go for a check down. And Ali trying to bounce it to the outside. And if he had blockers downfield, he probably could have got the first down. But they all ran way downfield past him. And that's going to turn into a field goal here for Baltimore. So it should be 10-10 here momentarily. Knee to the ribs by Lamar. That's not good. And Huntley to Rasheen Ali for that 7-yard pass. 4th down and 5. Tyler Loop has been good. 26 for 28 this season, 93%. That's what you want to see. You don't have to worry about Justin Tucker or any of his issues that he had. 36-yard field goal attempt. Incoming here. Kick is up and good. 10-10, Patriots and Ravens. All right, I got you. Lamar goes to the locker room. Hopefully he'll be okay. Marshawn, is one of the best personalities, in all sports. And again, I followed him at Cal, and then obviously with Buffalo for a short period of time. And then obviously he made his name and made his mark with Seattle. And again, we've been able to see him, on some of these networks, with different, ways to kind of show his personality, and him visiting different locations, meeting, with different people. They may have to bleep him, out quite a bit, he's as hood as it gets, but he's authentic. And that's why, he's so likable. He's not trying to be someone that he's not. What you see is what you get from Marshawn, and it's always been that way. And that's why he's so respected. And you don't really have too many guys that would run like him. The only other guy that was similar was LeGarrette Blount. And Blount got, on the Patriots and the Steelers back in that time period and was able to win Super Bowls. And, again, when you have that running style that Marshawn and LeGarrette Blount had, that's what you kind of were looking for at that time period in the NFL. A physical running back that didn't take shit from anybody, that could run you over, and again, that intimidated the hell out of a lot of people. And again, with LeGarrette Blount, right place, right time, to be with New England and Pittsburgh when they were both amazing. And then Marshawn, adding that oomph that they needed. And the Seahawks really never had a running back like Marshawn. And it shows you even now today, you got Kenneth Walker III and you got Charbonnet, but they're not Marshawn Lynch, And again, hopefully one day the Seahawks will have a guy like Marshawn. But again, certain individuals almost feel like they're one-of-ones. It's like you have guys that are maybe similar. It's like I haven't had a guy like Mike Allstott since Mike Allstott, and I probably will never, ever see one like Mike Allstott ever again, And, sometimes you just have to be blessed to have those guys in that particular era. Lamar's got a back injury. Uh-oh. Christian Okoye, Earl Campbell, great backs. Walter Payton. I mean, it just depends on, how back and how far we're going, If we're going to like the Jim Brown era, how far back are we going with all the amazing, backs that we've had over the years? So Jim Brown and the Gale Sayers, some of us obviously did not get a chance to watch these individuals. And then the Earl Campbells and the Bo Jacksons and, those big physical backs. But, Marshawn was definitely very, very special on and off the field. And obviously, if Seattle didn't have him, they wouldn't have won a Super Bowl. Same thing with some of those members on that Legion of Boom. And hopefully Lamar will be able to return, but based on what we saw, probably highly unlikely. And, I wonder what his options are going to be for, the last 2 games of the season. Because if you don't have Lamar the rest of the season, you may not win a game the rest of the way. And Pittsburgh might end up making the, playoff spot by default just due to the Lamar injury. May. And looking for Demario Douglas there on the sideline, incomplete. Broken up by Gilman by the Baltimore Ravens. 2nd down and 10 at the New England 35. The Bo era, one of my favorite players. I had the poster hanging up in my room. Lots of cards, football and baseball, Raiders and Royals. We got less than a minute to go. 10-10 tie. Shotgun set. Drake May. He's got booty open. And nice toe drag swag on the sideline. First down. Patriots, move the chains. First down and 10 at the Baltimore 49. And there's a good possibility they're going to get 3, maybe even 6 here before half. Yeah, back when you had Barry and Emmett and Bo, it was a wild time to be alive, let me tell you. And we haven't really had, running backs like that since. Obviously, Emmett had the benefit of the best offensive line in that time period, and obviously if Barry had that line, he would have broke every record and obliterated it. There's no doubt about that. And obviously, Bo is the greatest athlete that we've ever seen. As far as baseball and football, and being an All-Star or Pro Bowl in both. Dion played both, but he was an average baseball player. Great NFL player. But Bo was spectacular in high school, spectacular at Auburn. Baseball and football, and spectacular on the Royals and the Raiders before injuries cut his career short. And if Bo was able to stay healthy, first ballot Hall of Fame, there's no question that he would have been there. And, maybe would have been Hall of Fame on the baseball side too. Shotgun set, Drake May, short left to Stephon Diggs. And that's going to be 2nd down and 7 at the Baltimore 35. Wiggins with the coverage and the tackle. Shotgun set, Drake May, short left to Hunter Henry. And that's 4 yards. 3rd down and 3 at the Baltimore 31. And the Ravens desperately need a sack, a fumble, a pick. They need something to be able to prevent, a field goal or touchdown here. But offensive line for New England, has given up a couple. But we'll see if they can hang tough here right before half. 3rd down and 2. Ball comes out. And just like that, I told you need a fumble or some kind of play, but that might be ruled incomplete. It is a fumble. Wow. That's exactly what they needed. Sometimes the ESP is on point. You just say what you want, and then the sports gods instantly make it happen. I mean, what are the chances of him actually fumbling there, after we said it? And again, they got a couple sack lunches, but you get the hand on the football, just like they did when they punched it out from Derrick Henry. They got a piece of their own medicine there. Garrett Bradbury. And again, sack, op, fumble, recovery. And now with no Lamar potentially in the second half with Huntley, you prevent them from getting a field goal or a touchdown and taking the lead before half. That's huge. And I don't know why that happens, when we, do baseball or football games, and then I'll just come up with something, that I'm just thinking of, or, something that, I feel, and then all of a sudden it happens sometimes instantaneously. Wild. And Huntley, there we go. Nice pass. Mark Andrews, what was that, Mark? Were you trying to fumble that or lateral that? What was Mark Andrews doing right there? Was he trying to lateral that football? What the hell was that? And now we got a flag on the play. So Mark Andrews gets the ball, and then some kind of weird lateral, and then New England recovered. I don't know, man. Football has been wild lately. Maybe knee was down for Mark Andrews, but what made him think that he would be able to lateral that football for a touchdown in that particular situation? It's harder to call, turnovers, again, just the way that the game is, but sometimes, history repeats itself. So if you're able to pay attention, it happens all the time in every sport. You just have to kind of notice the signs. Oh, wow. Flags on both teams, huh? Roughing the passer on the D. Illegal forward pass on Mark Andrews. Offsetting penalties. Repeating first down. God, Mark Andrews, what were you thinking? All right, offsetting. And again, if Huntley can actually throw the football and get time with the O-line, there might be a chance that they could pull off the victory. But, really, it's going to be the battle in the trenches, O-line, D-line, defense, coaching, and play calling. And as long as they don't hand the ball off a billion times, the Ravens with Mitchell and Henry, and they actually throw the football, they should have a pretty good chance of competing in the second half. And Huntley kneels. They don't want to give Ali or any of the other backs a chance. And we're going to go into halftime. Pretty entertaining first half. Ravens have to win the last 3 games. Lamar gets hurt again. And how many times has he got hurt this season? Like 5 separate times. Again, his body is broken down here in 2025. New England, obviously with Drake May, we know they're a better team, even though they're on the road. They're 6-0 on the road. They just need to be a little bit better execution-wise. And, again, it should be 13-10 or 17-10. But sometimes, the sports gods want that, turnover, and we ended up getting it right on cue. All right, what do we want to do for photos? University, TJ, anything that you want to be able to see besides Marshawn? Yeah, I'll get you some Rashid Shaheed. And a player like Rashid Shaheed could be the difference between making the Super Bowl or not making the Super Bowl. Making, the NFC Championship or not making the NFC Championship, depending on the matchups. It's a guy that could be, wide receiver 3, 4, or 5 if you need him. He's a deep threat, could be obviously a decoy if needed. Come up with the big, long touchdown passes like he was able to do for the Saints, regardless of quarterback for New Orleans at that time. And then obviously used mostly on special teams. But again, when you got a speedster, you want to give him an opportunity to be able to showcase his skill set. And ever since they've gotten him, he's come up big with a few touchdowns on special teams. And if he didn't get one against the Rams on Thursday, guess what? They don't come back and win that game. Rashid Shaheed has been wild. I don't know how many Seahawk fans were really, familiar with his game since he was in the NFC South, but, I've been following him for quite some time. And, when I learned the Seahawks got him, I was like, ooh, they have no idea what they just got. I mean, besides obviously the people, in that Seahawk war, as well as a few fans that, watch the Saints or are familiar with his skill set. And I know he's excited, rather than being on a bottom feeder team, actually on a team that could make the Super Bowl. Take a look at the graphic here real quick. So we got Denver, New England, Jacksonville, Pittsburgh, Chargers, and the others. Man, it's getting really spicy here as we're getting into December, but that's the way that we want it at this point. 10-10 at half, 7 minutes to go before we get into the third quarter. New England will be receiving the second half kickoff. Cool Kid in the building. What's good? Well, we're still a few months away before we get into spring training. First game is February 20th. I don't know if it'll be televised and whatnot, but, we've got to wait and see. Obviously we got Naylor, which was great, but again, Polo ended up, leaving, so ended up joining the Mets. But again, that does leave the door open, if we can negotiate with Gino's agent, even though he does strike out a lot and his defense isn't as good as it used to be. But, we could potentially, bring him back if, the agent and the Mariners are on the same page, if that's what they want. Even though we have, Williamson and Colt Emerson coming up and Cole Young. And, we got some, young guns, that can fill in some of the spots. But, there's not very many guys, that play third base that can hit 30 to 50 homers. And, we know that Ben Williamson is going to be like a 10 homer guy or less realistically. And, Colt Emerson can play second, short, or third. And he's got the ability to, I think, hit, 20 or more if he was able to play a full season. But, in his first year starting, he would have 15 homers or less, kind of similar to Cole Young or Ben Williamson. But I think that he's got a lot of potential. And yeah, I mean, you would assume, somewhere in that, 87 to 95 win range, could be possible. But again, with some of the, subtractions to the team, like no Polo, I need to be able to, and no Harry Ford, even though we got Jose, to be in the bullpen as a lefty, for Harry Ford from the Nats. So I'm definitely looking forward to see what Ferreira ends up doing for us. But, it's still kind of early, to be able to see, who's going to be where and, how things are going to shake out. But, I think that we'll have a very good chance on winning the division, and if we don't, we should be able to definitely compete for second and making it in at some point at playoff push. Judah in the building. What's good? (10-10) tie. Drake May healthy. Lamar injured. And I don't know if we're going to see Lamar the rest of this game. And hopefully Lamar will be back in the second half. And if he's not back in the second half, hopefully he's back next week and the following week. Otherwise, if you don't Lamar the rest of the season, they probably won't win, a game. I mean, the rest of the way, we'll have to look at the schedule, see who they line up with. All right, they have who? So they have who do they have? Ravens play the Packers a couple days after Christmas. You're not going to win that. And then realistically, but I guess we have to figure out the Jordan Love injury too and how he's doing. And then Ravens Steelers at the end of the year. Yeah, I think this is just, it's starting to kind of stack up to be maybe a little bit too much for Baltimore this year, kind of like Tampa Bay, where Baltimore and Tampa Bay normally would make the playoffs, but it's kind of feeling like it might end up being Steelers and Panthers representing the two worst conferences in football, NFC South and the AFC North. So you just never know. Injuries can definitely derail a season. And, the Bucs have had plenty of injuries, and now Baltimore having some key ones with Lamar with a back injury there in the late first half. All right, we got 2 minutes to go here before we get into the third quarter. 10-10 Patriots and Ravens. I'm not sure if those were really big upsets, though. The way the Steelers have been playing, lately, and they've been playing a little bit more consistent football of late, and the Lions have definitely been kind of up and down and more on the downside. And then, going into the game, I kind of thought that the Jags were going to, compete, and it didn't really surprise me, that they ended up winning that game, and again, sometimes, you need to be able to get exposed towards the end of the season to be able to make those adjustments so that way you don't get exposed in the postseason. And again, Denver's defense wasn't able to do enough against the Jags, and then the offense wasn't able to score as well. And again, normally it's a very defensive, heavily, routed team where, they expect that defense to hold opponents usually, to 20 points or less. And if you're going to give up, 30 plus, to the Jags, you're not winning that game. And again, Jags definitely getting hot at the right time, and it's getting a little bit more competitive, where it was the NFC was the strongest conference for pretty much 3/4 of the year. But then within the last few weeks now, even though the Texans have been winning ugly like they did against the Raiders, Chargers, and Jags are taking advantage, with 10 plus wins for each of those teams. Now we don't really know how they're going to play in the playoffs. We've seen the Patriots hit a little bit of a wall against the Bills. We see the Broncos lose to the Jags. So again, it kind of feels like, the AFC is a little open. To me, the Bills are the best team in the AFC, even though there's other teams, in the AFC that could beat them. And then obviously on the NFC side, you got the Seahawks and the Rams and the Eagles. But again, you don't really know what version of the Niners or Bears you're going to get. Feels like the Packers and Lions are kind of, trending downwards. And then obviously you have Buccaneers and Panthers. Someone's got to make it from the NFC South, but, Bucks or Panthers aren't winning a playoff game. And chances are if the Steelers make it, they probably win one either, but they would have the best shot, out of the, three teams to actually win one, depending on who they match up with. So New England is going to receive the second half kickoff here momentarily. Mike in the building. What's good? Yeah. I mean, again, if you're betting just based off record, that can get you in trouble. You got to be able to look at how the team has been playing as of late, and sometimes, records can definitely be one of those things. If you're looking at just those kind of numbers or who's at home or who's got the better record, that doesn't necessarily mean that those teams are going to end up being victorious at the end. Mike in the building. What's good? Seahawks look great, but so do the Rams. Eagles starting to get a little bit better. It's going to be very, very exciting. We will be doing the Niners and the Colts. And too bad Daniel Jones got hurt. Otherwise, that would be like must-see TV to be able to see. And, I don't really know what you're going to get on the offense, from the Colts, but I know their defense will be fiery. And then obviously with the Niners, they're very well coached up with Shanahan and Saleh. So they should be the favored team to win. But again, I feel like the Niners and Bears are really, the two teams. You don't know what version will show up, but if, kind of the same thing with like the Jags and the Texans, you don't really know what version will show up, and the Chargers. But if those, second tier teams get hot, Bears, Niners, Chargers, Jags, Texans, they might be able to make a little bit of a run. It's possible. 30-yard return there by Kyle Williams. First down and 10 at the New England 30. Chief in the building. What's good? Drake May. And a little check down there. And Diggs dancing and romancing. 4-yard pass from May to Diggs. Roquan Smith with the tackle. 2nd down and 6 at the New England 34. Chief, how you doing, my guy? How's fantasy going? How are you? Like, sub, donate, comment, share. If you haven't smashed that like button yet, please do. Help us get to 100 likes, 100 on that dono train. And 5 to 15 subs. Let's get it, baby. May steps up in the pocket and goes to Austin Hooper, the tight end, incomplete. 3rd down and 6 at the New England 34. I mean, the biggest asset for the Seahawks this year, besides the O-line and the defense being much improved, is Kubiak calling plays. He's got the offense, rolling as a top 5 offense this year. And again, the O-line went from bottom 3 in the NFL to middle of the pack, 15th or 16th. And the defense has gotten much better as well. And a throw to Diggs almost gets picked off. Wiggins with the coverage. And now that's going to be 4th down and 6 at the New England 34. Great defense there by the Ravens. And we'll see if Lamar comes out or if his back is too jacked up where we'll get Huntley possibly for the rest of the game and maybe for the rest of the season. But Seahawks are a Super Bowl contender, just like the Rams and the Eagles. I think those are the 3. And then, Broncos, Patriots, Bills. And I think right now, Bills and Seahawks, to me, are looking like the best, but you can never count out the Rams. They ended up losing that game in a weird way, but they're definitely a team that could end up making the Super Bowl and winning it. And even though Philadelphia's offense isn't as good as it normally has been, if they can get hot at the right time, is it possible that the Eagles could beat the Hawks and the Rams? Yeah, it could happen, even though we feel the Hawks and the Rams are better than the Eagles this year. But, you got to earn your way to be able to get to that point. Delay a game. And now it's going to be 4th down and 11 for New England. Even though Travion Henderson doesn't have too many yards yet, I mean, if he ends up getting a few looks, all it takes is one touch, and he can go for a 40-yard touchdown. Especially when he's tied for rookies with like 6-7 tutties at this point. To me, he's the rookie of the year on the offense. Abuka was great in the first month, but hasn't got enough looks since like Evans and Godwin and everyone else came back. We know Tyler Warren for the Colts. The tight end has been awesome as well. But I feel like Travion Henderson has made the most splash plays as a rookie. And, we'll see if he ends up getting a few touches in the second half. All right, we got Tyler Huntley in the game. And let's see if Tyler can find a way to keep this game competitive. And again, if they throw the ball often, with the weapons they have, they'll be fine. But if they start to be one-dimensional and run the football with Ali, Henry, and others, it's going to be a long day. Henry up the middle. And 5-yard gain. 2nd down and 5 at the Baltimore 38. Second down and 5. They go to Henry, and he blows it open, running it off towards that left side. Great block there by the O-line. It might have been a hold, but he rumbles down the sideline. 23-yard run for King Henry. 1st down, Ravens. Move the chains. Jalen Hawkins, the safety for the Patriots, with the tackle. And a beautiful run there by King Henry. Really the only thing you have to worry about with Derrick Henry is him with his fumbling problem. But other than that, he's got the touchdown for them, and I'm just hoping that Zay Flowers can get enough opportunities to be able to move the chains as well as Mark Andrews. If they go plenty to Zay and Mark Andrews, they might have a chance to compete in the second half here. And a little flip to Keaton Mitchell. Loss of 1. That ain't going to get the job done. 2nd down and 11 at the New England 40. Clavon Chason with the tackle for New England. About 12 minutes to go here in the third quarter. We're knotted up at 10. Shotgun set. Uh-oh, it's 12 noon. You know what time it is? Time for a sack lunch. Yum, 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 yum. And nowhere to go for Tyler Huntley. And if that was Lamar, he would have taken that sack lunch as well. Loss of 7. And Jennings and company for New England with the big sack lunch. Shoulder pad goes in an upright position there after the sack. Third down and 18 after that Anthony Jennings sack lunch on the New England 47. Yeah, especially with all the injuries, Marine being that he's had this year. I think he's had more injuries this year than any year in his career. But again, it's not just Lamar. You know, it's the coaching and the play calling. I feel like that's the biggest weakness for this Raven team instead of being able to hit their full potential. I think they need a better head coach and better coordinators, personally. Throw to the sideline there to DeAndre Hopkins, gets 9 yards, about half of the distance of the first down. 4th down and 9 at the New England 38. Yeah, but Dart is a rookie, you know, and all of the studs on New York got hurt, you know. Neighbors first, right? And then obviously Scattaboo at running back, and then Dart, you know, and, you know, hopefully those three will be able to stay healthy together because then New York games will be kind of fun to watch, at least offensively. But, you know, we'll see if Dart will learn his lesson. And sometimes, you know, you got to get hurt and get blasted a few times to learn. Kick is up, and Loop misses it short. Wow, 56-yarder, no good. All right, time for New England to take advantage. 10:38 left in the third quarter, 10-10 tie, Patriots and Ravens. All right, we're at 24 likes, 6 more to get to 30, baby. Let's get there. And if you're just tuning into the matchup, King Henry running for a 21-yard rushing touchdown early in the first quarter, 7-0 Baltimore. Then Hunter Henry getting a jump pass from Drake May, making it 7-7 in the second. Field goal by Borregales there. 5:39 left in the second quarter, making it 10-7 New England. And then Tyler Loop with a 36-yarder right before halftime, making it 10-10. And then right before the half ended, you know, Lamar ended up getting a knee to the back, and he is out potentially not only for the rest of this game, but maybe the rest of the season. So it's going to be possibly Tyler Huntley the rest of the way. And, you know, with the Packers on deck and their issues with Jordan Love and his injury on top of the Steelers at the end, it kind of feels like the season is kind of slipping away for Baltimore like it is for Tampa Bay. Definitely feels like it's going to be Carolina and Pittsburgh. But if Tampa can win against the Dolphins and Carolina at home, you know, we will have a chance, you know, but, you know, I don't know. You know, I would love to win the NFC South for the 5th year in a row, but, you know, again, the O-line and the defense and the coaching have not been good for us this year. Ground beef burritos sounds delicious. Having 175 yards per game to 255. And obviously, you know, getting Diggs and, you know, having these other weapons available. But really, it's the development with Josh McDaniels, you know, one of the best play callers in the game. And again, they've been drafting really, really well. They got the right coach in Vrabel. They got the right OC, you know, and again, they've been able to get the right free agents and the right rookies. And again, to go from 4 wins to, you know, potentially 12 or 13, you know, usually you don't see that. And again, they have an identity, and I do believe that New England will be pretty good moving forward. There might be a year where they have too many injuries and they end up going like 7-10, but based on the roster and the coaching, they should be one of the top 4 teams in the AFC, you would assume, for the foreseeable future. 1 yard run there by Ramondre Stevenson. Roquan Smith with the tackle. 2nd down and 9 at the New England 47. May, little check down to Ramondre Stevenson, hits him with a little juke and starts dancing down the sideline, juking 1, 2, and 3. 23-yard pass from May to Stevenson. 1st down, Patriots. Move the chains. And it almost feels like it's inevitable that they're going to get in the end zone here momentarily. And we will be doing the Colts and the 49ers on Monday night. Shotgun set. May scrambles to that left side. Gets about 7-8 yards there. Roquan Smith was chasing him down. 2nd down and 2 at the Baltimore 22. Oh no, Travion Henderson is out. Fuck. Munford is questionable. Farmer is out. Woods has got an ankle. Tonga's got a foot. Golly. 5 Patriots out. Why, Travion? I was really hoping that he was going to get in the end zone, once or twice here today. That is tough. Travion with a possible concussion there. Head injury. So I guess we're going to go heavy Ramondre Stevenson. And Ramondre for no gain. Trenton Simpson there with the tackle. But even with all of those injuries, New England's still one of the best, more well-rounded teams in the AFC. Tyler in the building. What's good, brother? Broncos got a great defense, but the offense at times isn't very good, right? Buffalo got the offense. They can't stop the run, but they're pretty good on pass defense. But again, very offensive, heavy team. New England might be the most well-rounded team, offense, defense, and special teams that's in the entire AFC. Obviously Jacksonville is starting to show that they're pretty good on both sides of the ball as well. Also, May going to the end zone off Ramondre Stevenson's hand, incomplete. 4th down and 2 at the Baltimore 22. Lamar got injured right before half, so now we have Tyler Huntley, and the Patriots have 5 injuries from the beginning of the game till now. Most notable, the rookie Travion Henderson, who should win Offensive Rookie in the Year, in my opinion, or be obviously in the running, tied for the most touchdowns for rookies. And again, Tyler Warren has been great, but, I really like what I've seen from him as well. Field goal attempt is up, and it is good. Borregales there with a 41-yarder, and Andy makes it 13-10 New England. Sarah with $1. Every dollar counts. Appreciate that. Stacks. Rax with a little Cactus Jack. Bang, bang. Appreciate you. $1 holla on the Dono train. What do you want to see? You want to see some Tyler Warren? I'm looking forward to watching the Colts on prime time. It just sucks that Daniel Jones got hurt, because that's a game where they could win, and they could still potentially win, but it's going to be pretty tough, against the Niners, and you don't really know what version of the Niners or the Bears that you're typically going to get. But again, I think those are the 2 teams that are slept on the most. Like, people just assume that those teams got good records, but eventually are just going to fold and walk away. But again, they're coached up pretty well. You got Shanahan and you got Saleh for the Niners. You got Ben Johnson for the Bears. And again, it feels like the Packers and the Lions, Buccaneers and Panthers are kind of trending downwards. And it really is just the Seahawks, the Rams, the Eagles, for the top. But below them, I wouldn't be, counting out the Niners or the Bears in the playoffs, especially if people are assuming that they're just going to fold and, it's over for them. And, like right now, I like the Bears and the Niners more than the Lions and Packers. And that's kind of a crazy thing to say. But, just because those teams were good last year, they're not the same teams this year, and injuries,
for the Packers, and coaching, play calling, and obviously the Lions offensive line isn't the same. And again, Jahmyr Gibbs is great, but it just doesn't feel like the offense and defense is as dominant as it was. It felt like the Lions window may have closed, which is crazy because sometimes you only have a couple years and then you got to start to rebuild again. And they were doing a good job, after Dan Campbell got the job initially, and they were getting improvement every single year for about 3-4 years. But, unless they end up drafting really, really well and getting some free agents and filling up the gaps in that O-line and the defense, we may not see Detroit as one of the top 2 teams in the NFC or top 3 unless those things get corrected. And, they were very, very good for the last couple of years, the Lions, but, obviously they're trending definitely downwards like the Packers. And it doesn't, hurt my feelings to see the Bears beat the Packers or anybody beating the Packers in the North. That will always make me smile. I've always had a rivalry with them, going back to the Brett Favre, Warren Sapp days. So Packers lose. That's a great day for me. And we'll find out what we get moving forward the rest of the way. Henderson just got hurt, so your bet is a no-go, unfortunately. Head injury, maybe possible concussion. See if we can squeeze in this Tyler Warren quickly here for Sarah. Five-yard run by Derrick Henry. Chase on there with the tackle. 2nd down and 5 at the Baltimore 40. Really looking forward to watching Tyler Warren tomorrow against the Niners. And even though the Niners more than likely will win, I think the Colts defense will play pretty well. Really the question mark is going to be the offense and how many points are going to be able to pick up. So Tyler Warren shirt, hell yeah. But again, I felt like, even with the first start with Rivers, they played with a lot of heart. They just didn't have enough offensively. But, Colts got guys on defense that can get the job done, especially if they can score on that side of the ball or get sacks, picks, and fumbles. If the Colts win tomorrow, it's going to be because of their defense, not their offense. And again, I'm a defensive-minded guy, and I'm actually really looking forward to the matchup between the Colts and the Niners. Just wish Daniel Jones didn't get hurt. King Henry. Bouncing it to the right side, gaining about 4. Tavai and Ellis for the Patriots with the tackle. 3rd down and 1 at the Baltimore 44, 13-10 Patriots. DeForest Buckner is back. Nice. Like lot 2 is great. Like, again, it's like if Daniel Jones doesn't get hurt, they would have a good shot to make the AFC Championship game this year. And, hopefully next year, if he can recover, if that's the direction that they want to go, hopefully they can figure it out. But just sad. Injuries can be so crippling in football. It's so unfair. And we got a false start there on Isaiah Likely. He hasn't been able to catch a pass just yet, but hopefully they'll be able to get him the rock. And 3rd down and 1 now goes to 3rd down and 5. And again, you can't be doing that if you're trying to win a game with Tyler Huntley instead of Lamar. And we know the Niners have literally no name on defense that's recognizable. But if Salah's coaching them up, they've been able to win games even with no really big names on the defense anymore. Dre Greenlaw and Talanoa Hufanga on the Broncos, Nick Bosa and Fred Warner out for the year. And you got just a bunch of no-name guys, but they play they're big-name guys on that side. It's very impressive. It's probably the first time I've seen a no-name defense play well, but they do have one of the best D coordinators in the game in Robert Saleh. So that's where it is. Huntley passing complete deep right to DeAndre Hopkins. And that's going to turn into... Ooh, that's close. Toe drag swag. They said incomplete on 4th down and 5, but look at this second foot and look at him drag it. I mean, the ball is moving slightly there in his hands, though. 1, and then after he recovers it, and then he slides that foot. Initially, he has the ball a little bit loose right when he gets it there because the deflection by the Patriot defender, but right as he goes out of bounds, he cradles it, and it looks like that might have been a catch. Very close with that second foot. And that is a good challenge there. That might be first down Ravens. I mean, what do they have to lose at this point besides Lamar? Yeah, and then obviously Jonathan Taylor's great. Pittman's great. I want Latu. Obviously, that's the one I want to see because I'm a defensive-minded fan. But if the Colts play with purpose and pride, it's a very well-matched game, between those two teams. So I'm looking forward to it tomorrow. It just sucks with the Chiefs and all of the injuries and whatnot to Mahomes and now Gardner Minshew, because it kind of feels like the Chiefs are just going to get absolutely destroyed every game the rest of the season. And then obviously if we end up, doing the Broncos and Chiefs on Christmas for that late game, obviously that would have been great if it was Mahomes and Knicks. But now we know Denver, even if they play bad, they're winning that game. They don't even have to play well to win. So it'll be, we'll hang out, but it's not going to be a great game, more than likely. But, at least it'll give us a chance to hang out on Christmas evening because I'm not going to be able to get back until, a little bit before that game. And obviously out of the 3 games, that's going to be the worst game. But, no one could have predicted the Mahomes injury. So, but Cowboys, Commanders, you would assume the Cowboys would win. Lions and Vikings, both teams kind of reeling. You would assume the Lions will win, but the way they've been playing lately, they might drop that game to the Vikings, and then Broncos Chiefs. So not really the most ideal schedule. Definitely not as good as Thanksgiving or Black Friday when we had the Bears go against the Eagles. Thanksgiving was pretty solid, top to bottom, as well as that Black Friday game. This year, Christmas, not very good. Cowboys, Commanders, not the greatest. Honestly, if they would have switched Lions, Vikings to the last game, then that would be a little bit better than Broncos, Chiefs, with all things considered. But, 5:54 left in the third quarter, 13-10, New England. But then we do have a couple games on Saturday, Texans and Chargers, Ravens and Packers. So, there's a chance that I might end up doing, one of those. And they won the challenge. The call was reversed, and I think that is the correct call. Bobbled it, then got 1 foot down, and he dragged that second foot. That's beautiful. Good challenge there by the Ravens. And the Cotton Bowl will be on December 31st. And then the Sugar Bowl, Rose Bowl, and the Capital One Orange Bowl, obviously, will be all on January 1st. So we will end up doing one of those games on this upcoming Saturday between the Texans and Chargers. Probably will do that one over the Ravens and Packers. It'll be more competitive. So, and both teams are, kind of going in the right direction at this point. Flag comes out late on the play after Zay Flowers gets that catch. Latu, nice. If I was a fan of the Colts, that would have been the jersey that I would have gotten. So, face mask by Ellis there. Automatic first down. And nice job by Zay Flowers. And, I wish people would realize that the offense goes through Zay Flowers rather than Derrick Henry. And the more you get Zay Flowers, the better of a chance you have to win. It's just clear and cut. Yeah, sorry about your Chiefs too, dude. It sucks, man. Again, I watched that whole game, and we decided to run the ball, 30 plus times, which I didn't have a problem with. The defense was good, much better than it normally has been, but Baker threw a pick, on the last drive when we were down by 3, and, offensive line hasn't been good. Defense hasn't really been that good. And then Baker late in games, unfortunately, hasn't been as clutch as we've needed him. And, we still have a chance to make the playoffs. We play the Dolphins next week, and then we got the Panthers in a rematch at home. So if we win the last 2 games, we get in. So, and they play the Seahawks and us. So there is a chance that the Panthers could drop the last 2 games, and, they go 8-9, we go 9-8. It's ugly, but, I hope that it's us and the Steelers, but it could be the Panthers and the Steelers. Touchdown, Ravens! And guess who it is? Zay Flowers. I mean, when you know football, you know football. When you get Zay Flowers the ball, you win. And nice job there. Zay Flowers getting some touches early in the game. Goes to that right side, 18-yard touchdown run. Zay Flowers. Who would have thought that he would be more valuable than Lamar or Derrick Henry this year, but he truly is. And look at Likely and Lindley there with those big blocks. And then again, Zay with the shiftiness at wide receiver. Beautiful. No Lamar Jackson with the back injury. No problem. Extra point is up. And it is good. Awesome to be able to see the Ravens still score points after the Lamar injury instead of just, folding up like a lawn chair and saying, we're done. Especially against a team like New England, who might be the most well-rounded team in the entire AFC. So we know the Bills are great on offense. Run defense stinks, bottom 3, secondary, top 5. So if you can run on the Bills, that's how you beat them. But most teams end up being behind and they end up abandoning the run, and that plays right into Josh Allen and Cook's hands. Flag on the play. Personal foul on the defense. And that'll be assessed on the kickoff. 17-13 Ravens. Yeah. But again, not a whole lot of sack lunches, not a lot of fumbles, a lot of picks, but, the O-line hasn't been good. Tristan Wirfs is good, but the other guys need to be better. And then, you got Vita Vea, Levante David, and, Jamel Dean and Antoine Winfield Jr. But again, 4 guys out of 11 just isn't going to get the job done. And again, it was a very back and forth competitive game. One of the better games that I've seen Tampa play within the last few weeks. But again, we're just not playing our best ball. And it's like, you got Baker and you got Bucky Irving and you got Evans and Godwin, but you have to realize that they're not playing like they normally, have been when they were all, kind of rolling. There's certain drives where they look good. Mike Evans got one-on-one coverage and got a touchdown early in the game for us to be up 7-0. But late in the games, the inability to get pressure on Bryce Young and for him to be able to get enough, with Rico Dowdle and Ted McMillan, and I already knew, regardless of record, usually the Panther-Buccaneer matchups are very close, and again, usually we split every year. So, they got us this time, but hopefully we take care of the Dolphins, play at home in that last game, and, we'll find out if the Bucs end up winning the NFC South for the 5th year in a row, or if the Panthers, end up, finding a way. And if they end up getting it, they've definitely earned it. And it'll be the first time that they've been to the playoffs in almost 10 years. So like, sub, donate, comment, share. If you haven't smashed that like button yet, please do. Help us get to 100 likes, 100 on that dono train. And 5 to 15 subs. Let's get it, baby. One of the most underrated wide receivers in the game, Zay Flowers. You continue to get Zay Flowers the game. Ball situations late in the 3rd and 4th quarter, you give him the rock. You're going to win this game more than likely. But again, if you fade him and you start going to Henry and you go to Ali and you start running the football, that could lead to fumbles and turnovers. And again, to be able to get Mark Andrews and Isaiah Likely and Kolar, you're going to have to get the tight ends involved as well. But again, if you go heavy tight end, heavy Zay, they should have a shot. But again, we will see if they end up having the same strategy in the 3rd rather than the 4th. And flag on the play. Loop kicks 40 yards, but then it goes out of bounds. Sarah, any major injuries that we have to be aware of going into tomorrow's game on Monday Night Football? I mean, obviously, we already know about the Daniel Jones situation, but is there any other key guys on offense and defense that are either coming back or are injured? You said Buckner's coming back, and May fumbles the connection there from the center, and luckily Drake May gets his own recovery on the fumble. Loss of 7, second down and 17 at the New England 18. Was going to hand that ball off, and it just fell out of his hands. They are very lucky that Baltimore did not scoop and score that football. Second down and 17. And Hunter Henry is there at the sideline. Nice catch. And that's going to be a 12-yard pass from May to Henry. Third down and 5 at the New England 30. And a good one here. 17-13 Ravens with no Lamar. Huntley with the touchdown pass to get him the lead. And again, Huntley is one of the top 5 backups in the league. And again, you have the weapons to be able to win this game. But we will find out if they have the coaching and play calling as well as the defense to help him out. Ryman and Sauce. But DeForest Buckner is back. And, Latu is the one. That's must-see TV. Latu. Shotgun set on third down and 5. See if the Ravens bring blitz. No, they only bring 4, but the blitz is off the edge. May avoids a sack lunch. And on the run, complete. First down, Patriots, but the flags come out. Booty with the catch. But that's going to be offensive PI. Uh-oh. Patriots reeling here a little bit. Ten-yard penalty there on Booty. Third down and 15 at the New England 20. Self-inflicted wounds, and if New England has too many of those, Baltimore is going to get the upset, even though they were favored on the Vegas line. Steelers definitely playing well. They're playing well for your dad, and again, it kind of feels like, they have the upper hand, over the Ravens to be able to make the playoff spot. We'll see if it ends up being Bucks and Steelers that make it, or if it ends up being Ravens and Panthers, or one of those combinations. Third down and 15. May steps up in the pocket, wide open, and there's Stephon Diggs doing Stephon Diggs things. That's his 6th reception. He's at 100 yards, 6 targets. No. 7 targets, 6 catches, 100 yards. The only thing he needs now is a tutty. 24-yard pass from May to Diggs. First down, Patriots. Move the chains. Yeah, and even though the Steelers were very inconsistent, in the middle of the season, started off okay. They've been going up and down, but they definitely have looked pretty good lately in the last few weeks. Even with no TJ Watt, no problem. First down and 10. And looking for Austin Hooper, his tight end, incomplete. Kyle Hamilton with the coverage. Second down and 10 at the New England 44. Yeah, who knows how long that will last, but it's like Clay and Megan Thee Stallion. You get some of these people that are entertainers with the athletes. Sometimes it ends up lasting for a little bit, and sometimes it might last a little bit longer, but we'll find out. Second down and 10, shotgun set. May, plenty of time. Laser to Mac Hollins, who's been a very good player for New England this year as one of the role players, but just out of reach. Green with the coverage for Baltimore. Third down and 10 at the New England 44. Shout out to my boy Brooks Beats with the best beats on YouTube. Like, sub, donate, comment, share. If you haven't smashed that like button yet, please do. Help us get to 100 likes, 100 on that dono train, and 5 to 15 subs. Third down and 10. May. And just throws it away out of bounds, incomplete, but he takes a big hit and he is down. Slow to get up, Drake May. Hopefully he's okay. We don't want both quarterbacks out of the game. Offensive lineman picks him up. He shakes himself off, and he heads to the sideline. But Washington going for the sack. And nothing really too vicious about that hit there. It's not like he twisted the knee and would try to injure him, but. Oh, New England with the fake. Oh, fumble. Oh, I think the Ravens got it. Oh my, what were they thinking there? And if New England keeps playing sloppy like this, they're not going to win. Wow, Baltimore with the recovery. And even with the backup quarterback, again, New England hasn't been the same since that Buffalo game where they were up big in the first quarter, like 17-0. And, when you end up being up 17-0, 21-0, and then a team like Buffalo comes back, they definitely have not been mentally sharp since. And again, this is definitely alarming when you're getting into the end of the season. You need to be hot and healthy at the end of the year. You don't want to play sloppy ball in December, because if you play like this, you may not be able to beat a team like the Chargers or the Jaguars, let alone the Broncos or one of the others here in the AFC. Wow. And I don't like the play call there by New England, and great job by Baltimore. Even with Lamar being out, understand that they need to win out the last 3 games to be able to make the playoffs, and the Steelers have the upper hand. But if Baltimore can win this game, find a way to win against the Packers, then it will be all for the marbles against the Steelers in the last week of the season. I mean, Ravens have the momentum, even though they have the backup quarterback in, but they're just playing smarter football. And if they continue to give it to Zay heavy, they will win this game. But if they fade Zay and they start running the football and being a little conservative, trying to bleed the clock out and running the football, with their 3, running backs in that running back room with King Henry and obviously the others with Ali, we'll see. You don't want to have them get back in the game, but it's going to be very interesting to see how the fourth quarter plays out. First down and 15, fake toss. And guess who? Huntley to Zay Flowers. They got my text message. First down, Ravens. Put me at OC, coach. 14-yard pass from Huntley to Zay. Huntley is one of the top 5 backup QBs in the league, and he's showing he might not be Lamar, but honestly, Lamar this year hasn't really been very good. He's been injured, right? He can't really run away, from any of the opponents. Some of the, throws have been a little questionable with his injury, to his lower body, but Huntley is stepping in very nicely here. 14-yard pass turns into first down and 10, and we have a false start on Rosengarten, the offensive tackle for the Ravens. And that's the last thing that you need. Can't have self-inflicted wounds if you're trying to win at home. And I think New England is still a very good team. But again, they definitely are hitting a point where if you want to be one of those top 3 teams, you got to be a little bit more consistent. And they were very, very good. Again, they have only 3 losses. They're 6-0 on the road. But if they play like they have been in the third quarter, they're going to drop this game. Mitchell with that handoff bouncing outside for about 5 yards. Carlton Davis III, the former Buccaneer corner, with the tackle. Third down and 1 at the New England 35. Less than 1 minute to go in the third quarter, 17-13 Ravens. And normally when we're talking about Baltimore, we're talking about the lack of strategy and coaching, by Harbaugh and the OC and the DC. But again, they're definitely giving Zay, the ball more. And again, if they continue to do that the rest of the season, they will have a good chance in every game the rest of the way. He's what makes the team move, Zay Flowers. All right, we got 42 seconds left, and we'll see what they decide to do here. Obviously, you can do a QB sneak or run the football with your running back, but if you go play action and you can go with the tight end, that would definitely get a first down, but they're lining up in a tush-push formation. 3rd and 1. And tush-push there. Mark Andrews there, direct snap. First down, Ravens. And we know Mark Andrews can get a first down on 4th and 1, 4th and 2. probably about 85% of the time. And you got Ricard on one side and Derrick Henry on the other, giving Andrews a push even though he didn't need it. 3-yard run there on the direct snap. First down, Ravens. And that's going to be the end of the third quarter. 17-13 Baltimore. And again, this would be a bad loss for New England if they drop this game. And again, they just haven't been the same since that Buffalo game. We go to the fourth quarter. Ravens up by 4. Get the ball to Zay Flowers. Get the ball to Mark Andrews. And that will turn into a victory. (17-13) Baltimore. We got a good one. And I knew I had a feeling. I didn't anticipate Lamar getting injured. But again, it's definitely been a good game. And, that's what we want, right? We want good matchups. Even if certain teams that are playing may not be our favorites, we just want to be able to see a good quality 4 quarters. Here in the back end of the season, the NFL is starting to wrap up. College football is starting to wrap up. We'll be doing a lot of the coverage on Sunday night, Monday night, Thursday night, as well as the college football playoff games. We're going to end up doing almost every single one the rest of the way, besides maybe one, or 2. And again, we got Oregon and Texas Tech at 9 a.m. Then you got Bama and Indiana on after that. So we won't be doing that, or Ole Miss and Georgia. But obviously doing Ohio State and Miami. We'll do that one because that'll be on, obviously New Year's Eve. So we'll do that, and then Oregon, Texas Tech. But then when we go to the Peach Bowl, if we get Oregon, Indiana, we'll do that. If we get Georgia and Ohio State in the Fiesta Bowl, we'll do that. And then hopefully it ends up being Oregon and Ohio State in the Natty, or Oregon, Georgia. So, and then before you know it, it'll be February, and we'll be getting right back into baseball, which I'm very excited about the Mariners. And hopefully we can end up having an amazing season like we did this year. Hand off to King Henry to start off the fourth quarter, bouncing it to the left side. 4-yard gain. Elijah Ponder, the linebacker for the Patriots, with the tackle. And that's 15 carries for 100 yards and a tutty for Henry. So 100 yards for Henry and 100 yards, obviously, for Stephon Diggs on the opposite side. But we will see what will happen here in the fourth. Hand off to Derrick Henry, starting to rumble and breaking that tackle. Nice 22-yard run with that halfback toss, running towards that left side, getting a nice key block as well, and a nice ankle tackle there late by Craig Woodson, the safety for the Pats. And now it's 1st and goal at the New England 6. And if the Baltimore Ravens go up 24-13, it's going to be very difficult to come back. Huntley under center. Hand off to Henry. And 4-yard run there. Gregory and Gibbons for the Patriots with the tackle. 2nd and goal at the New England 2. Last year, 74% in the red zone, best in the NFL. Second lowest this year, 44%, 30% worse this year from last year. Second and goal. And Derrick Henry off that left side. Touchdown, Ravens. 23-13 lead. And now the extra point incoming here for Baltimore. And New England and Denver are definitely going to be questioning themselves here late in the season. Buffalo is flying high. To me, they're the best team in the AFC, personally. And again, you know, if you're a Charger fan or if you're a Jag fan, you're starting to feel pretty good with how things are playing out here late in the season as well. You know, Denver and New England are starting to stall a little bit, and everyone else is catching up. Extra point is up by Loop and good. 24-13 Ravens. The only way New England is coming back is if they end up getting a pick six, a fumble for a touchdown, or a blocked punt or a blocked field goal. I mean, that really kind of feels like that's the only way. You know, you're going to have to score, get a big stop, a big turnover and score. But I don't know. Based on, you know, the inability of the defense and how good Henry and Zay have been, you know, this could end up being an L for the New England Patriots. (24-13) Ravens. All right, we got 12:50 left here in the fourth quarter. Ravens with a backup quarterback playing very, very well. The more desperate team needing to win out if they want any chance to be able to make the playoffs at 7-7. Steelers are playing some pretty good ball as of late, so it's definitely going to come down to the wire. Ravens have the Packers and Steelers for their last two games. Going to be very interesting. And, you know, if you're a New England fan or a Denver fan, you don't feel pretty good, you know, on how things have been going. You were very, very good for the first 3 months of the season, but, you know, now in, you know, crunch time when you need to be winning games, you know, Denver and New England have been dropping a few games here lately. And obviously the Chargers are getting hot. The Jags are getting hot. And again, you know, the Buffalo Bills still seem like the best team in the AFC to me, even though Denver's defense typically is good. New England is very well-rounded, you know, but again, it's about getting hot and healthy and playing your best ball in December going into January. And again, the teams that have been the best with the Broncos and Patriots for the first 3 months of the season are definitely hitting a wall here in December. New England's going to need a miracle to come back in this one. And the lack of, you know, certain players not being available like Travion Henderson, that's huge. Kickoff there to Kyle Williams, and he gets a nice 24-yard return. First down and 10 at the New England 27. And again, we will be doing the Colts and the 49ers on Monday Night Football here on the live stream tomorrow. Nothing on Tuesday and Wednesday, and then we'll be back on Christmas night doing the Broncos and the Chiefs, Too bad Patrick Mahomes and Gardner Minshew got hurt. That obviously will be a blowout by the Broncos, but at least it'll give us time to hang out on Christmas evening. Drake May, short middle to Hunter Henry, 6-yard catch. Roquan Smith with the pressure and the tackle. 2nd down and 4 at the New England 33. But even though they have struggled, as of late, New England and Denver, that doesn't mean that they can't turn it up, once the playoffs come around. But, a little alarming, to see the top teams, start to kind of struggle in December a little bit. And definitely winnable, matchups and games. But I kind of had a feeling the Jags were going to win against Denver. And again, if Bo Nix had more to work with other than R.J. Harvey and Cortland Sutton and Evan Ingram, that's kind of the issue. You need more options on offense for Bo. And again, if the defense doesn't step up, then you can't expect the offense to, win them a game. It's just they're not on that level yet. And the New England has plenty of pieces on offense and defense, but the injuries, obviously, within the last few weeks have definitely hurt them. May. And a nice catch there by Kyle Williams, the speedster. 9-yard pass from May to Williams. 2nd down and 1 at the New England 47. Less than 12 minutes to go here in the 4th quarter. 24-13 Ravens. Man in motion on 2nd down and 1. Drake May, short right to Mac Hollins. And that's a 5-yard gain. 1st down, Patriots. And getting Mac Hollins the ball could definitely give them the spark that they need. Usually in the big games that New England wins, you usually see Mac Hollins making a big, deep, double team, kind of contested catch, to kind of give them the energy and that spark that they need. But they haven't really been able to do that with Mac Hollins here today. Diggs has had a good day, but other than that, Booty and some of the others haven't really been able to get going just yet. And no Travion Henderson with the injury to the head being out for the game, which leaves you with Ramondre Stevenson. And, it's nice to have the two. Drake May with a 2-yard run, avoiding the pressure from Roquan Smith, the linebacker for the Ravens. 2nd down and 8 at the Baltimore 46. 24-13 Ravens with the backup quarterback, Tyler Huntley. And again, if you get the ball to Zay and Henry isn't fumbling left and right, then you're going to end up playing motivated football. But the line of scrimmage has been pretty well contested, by the O-line and the D-line of the Ravens. Let's see if New England can get a quick score here to cut into this lead. Shotgun set, Drake May going to Diggs and caught. 1st down, Patriots. 1st down and 10 at the Baltimore 37, and that's 7 receptions for 108 yards for Stephon Diggs. And they're going to need Diggs to get into the end zone or make a couple more big plays if they want to get back into this. Great throw there by Drake May. 24 for 35, 1 touchdown and 1 pick so far. May going deep, 1-on-1. Touchdown, Patriots. And just like that, Kyle Williams, the deep threat, says, hey, I can ball. Get me a chance. And just like that, Kyle Williams delivers. Nice. They needed a quick touchdown, and they just got it just like that. Let's see if he got both feet down. Over the shoulder. 1, knee is down. Comes down with it, hand underneath the ball. 100% a touchdown. Beautiful job by Kyle Williams. And now they're going to go for a 2-point conversion here. Shotgun set. May steps up in the pocket and a little flip. Ramondre Stevenson with the catch, and it is good. But we got a flag on the play. We'll see if that's holding on the Patriots O-line. Penalty is declined. 2-point conversion is good. Now we have ourselves a game. 24-21 Ravens. Now, Bucks ended up losing by 3 to the Panthers this morning, but we still have a chance to make the playoffs. You know, we got the Dolphins next week, and then we got the rematch with the Panthers at home. So obviously we need to win the last 2 games of the season to make it, to go 9-8. Otherwise, the Panthers are in, but the Panthers play the Seahawks and then the Bucks. So obviously our path is a little bit easier, but we haven't really been playing the greatest ball as of late. Not JT. What are we talking about here? I mean, if we had better O-line, better defense, and better coaching, maybe we could actually win a playoff game as like an underdog. But, if we could like combine the Panther, and Buccaneer team together, and that way we could actually have a defense with what we have, with Baker in the offense, then, but again, we're not really able to get sack lunches. We can't get fumbles or picks. Defense, we don't have enough talent on that side of the ball. Coaching isn't good. And, really the bright side is, you got Baker and you got Bucky Irving and Evans and Godwin and Ibuka. So it's like we got these like special fun players to watch on offense, but that doesn't necessarily equate to points, every single drive. And, offensive line really is the key. And again, if you don't got a good O-line, D-line, defense, coaching, play calling, which the Buccaneers do not, then you end up having a record that we have right now. So we'll see how it goes. I hope we make it, and we can end up, beating the Dolphins and the Panthers, even if we get in it with a 9-8 record. I just want to try to win the NFC South for the 5th year in a row. We are pretenders, not contenders. We're not like the Hawks or the Rams or the Eagles. That's very clear, but I still would love to get to the playoffs at this point. So. I feel with Grizzard, at times, the play calls, are pretty good, but at other times, it's a kind of suspect, so I don't know. For me, like, I wouldn't mind just blowing it up, getting rid of Bowles, getting rid of him and starting over, and trying to build something. So. And Borregales with a 57-yard kick. Rasheen Ali with a 28-yard return, as there's a little bit of a scuffle and a kerfuffle here or there at the end. First down and 10 at the Baltimore 31. As you see, Denver, New England, Jacksonville, Pittsburgh, wild card is the Chargers, Buffalo, and Houston. In the hunt is the Colts and the Ravens. But again, I like the Bills the best in the AFC. Even though they can't stop the run, I think that's the team that would probably have the best chance, to win the Super Bowl for the AFC. Shotgun set here for Tyler Huntley. And if they want to be able to win this game, they need a touchdown, obviously, before the game is over here in the 4th quarter. Because if you get a field goal and it's 27-21, there's no guarantee that you're going to win. It could definitely be a 28-27 victory for New England. Baltimore gets a field goal, New England gets a touchdown, and then they win the game by 1. So. Incomplete there from Huntley to Rashad Bateman. 2 targets with no catches. Instead of going to Bateman, go to Zay Flowers. Go to Mark Andrews. I mean, I know you want to be able to go to DeAndre Hopkins and Bateman, but there's a time and a place. 2nd down and 10. And Keaton Mitchell runs to the right side for about a 4-yard gain. Christian Ellis, the linebacker, with the tackle. 3rd down and 6 at the Baltimore 35. Zay Flowers. Get him the ball. Zay and Derrick Henry have been good today. And again, you can always go to Mark Andrews on third down as well. Yeah, they got Quinn Ewers and Zach Wilson, so. Third down and 6 with about 8 minutes to go here in the fourth quarter. New England bringing a blitz. Quick pass, caught by DeAndre Hopkins. Nice! First down, Ravens. The OG gets it done against Carlton Davis III, the former Buccaneer corner. And that's first down and 10 at the Baltimore 43. Nice. Could come down to whoever has the ball last in this game, and hopefully that'll be the same tomorrow with the Colts and the Niners. Looking forward to that one. Shotgun set, and Keaton Mitchell gets the carry. No gain. Gibbons and Durden for the Patriots with a nice tackle. Second down and 10 at the Baltimore 43. Like, sub, donate, comment, share. If you haven't smashed that like button yet, please do. Help us get to 100 likes, 100 on that dono train. And 5 to 15 subs. Shout out to my boy Brooks Beats with the best beats on YouTube. Britt in the building. How are you? Down by 3 here, but still a chance to come back and win this game. Huntley, play action, decides to step up in the pocket. Nice block up front by the O-line, and slips and falls. Gain of 3. Third down and 7 at the Baltimore 46. 24-21 Ravens with about 6 minutes to go here in the fourth quarter. Well, injuries have been the big key. You lost 5 players, that are starters in this game. The big one was Travion Henderson going down with a head concussion injury. But, Diggs has played well, but again, who else is going to be able to step up? Third down and 7 at the Baltimore 46. Mark Andrews in motion. Shotgun set. New England with the blitz. And a short throw to Mark Andrews, nowhere near the first down. Great blitz by New England, and that's a 3-yard pass. Fourth down and 4 at the Baltimore 49. And they got the offense still on the field. They'll see if they can draw them off with the hard count. And again, Baltimore giving up the football or only getting 3 on this drive was not going to necessarily be enough to win this game. I believe so. I think Seahawks will play starters. I think they'll play starters the rest of the way. Even if you clinch, you want to play good football and have that continuity and chemistry. So, flag on the play, and that's going to be a false start on the Ravens. They thought that New England jumped, but that was a little premature there. And that's going to be fourth down and 9 at the Baltimore 44. Yeah. Well, also mentally, they haven't really been the same since the Bills comeback when they were up, 21-0 and, the Bills came back. So, normally when a team goes up 21-0 in the first quarter, you don't lose. But again, we still think that they're very well-rounded and whatnot. But again, you have to be able to bounce back. And, sometimes it's tough. I feel right now, Buffalo is the team to beat in the AFC. Still think Denver and New England are good. But again, the Chargers and the Jags have caught up. And it's definitely going to be, a battle and a war to decide who's going to come out of the AFC and who's going to come out of the NFC. Could we end up getting Seahawks-Bills? Could we end up getting Rams-Bills in the Super Bowl? Or Eagles-Bills? It's very possible. But again, we'll have to kind of wait and see how it all plays out. And again, we also have to monitor the injuries that we have, on not only these two teams, but, every single team moving forward here in December. Stout with the punt. And down by Jackson. First down and 10 at the New England 11. And they only need 3 to tie and a touchdown potentially to win. And I know Josh McDaniels and Drake May like their chances here with about 5:02 left in the fourth. And obviously you can't be too one-dimensional. You know, we obviously know Travion Henderson is out and injured with the head/concussion potentially. But Ramondre Stevenson, just like here on the thumb, they need to make sure they give him a few touches to keep the Raven defense honest. And then eventually you'll be able to go to Kyle Williams or Stephon Diggs. I mean, you got Booty. You got plenty of options there. Mac Hollins, you know, this is about the time where normally they go deep for like a 40-yard bomb to Mac Hollins. But we'll wait and see. You know, but they definitely have enough weapons to be able to make it happen. And, you know, New England is 6-0 on the road, 11-3, going to get 7-7 Baltimore. But we will see what happens here late. But still, you know, with all things considered, you know, going from 4 wins to potentially 11 to 13 wins, that's a big turnaround. You know, Vrabel is the right coach. Mayo was not. Josh McDaniels has mentored Drake May perfectly. They've been drafting and bringing in the best free agents to fit that team scheme within the last 2 years. And again, injuries have hurt, you know, the team here in December, but a lot of teams are, you know, starting to get kind of banged up. But you know, New England still has a good chance to represent the AFC, but you know, these are the type of games you got to make sure that you finish the job, especially if you want to try to make it to the AFC Championship game. Shout out to my boy Brooks Beats with the best beats on YouTube. Like, sub, donate, comment, share. If you haven't smashed that like button yet, please do. Help us get to 100 likes, 100 on that dono train. And 5 to 15 subs. We'll be doing the Niners and the Colts on Monday Night Football tomorrow. Looking forward to that. Then I'm going to be able to go to the biggest arcade in the United States. That'll be on Tuesday. 650 games, $23, and then all of them is for admission, and then everything is free. So I want to be playing WrestleFest, and you know, they have all the different Cruisin' USA options, even some of the newer ones. Definitely looking forward to getting the gaming on, and we'll definitely be eating good. There's like a very fire Hawaiian place nearby. We've never been there before, so I'm definitely looking forward to that. Wednesday will be, you know, just a chill day, and then obviously we'll be back on Christmas evening for the Broncos and the Chiefs. We know that game won't be good because Mahomes and Minshew will probably be out, but Broncos will win, but at least it'll give us a chance to kind of hang out for a couple hours, you know, obviously on Christmas evening. Shotgun set, and just on cue, like I talked about Mac Hollins, there he is, deep right, and my ESP is on point, 20-yard pass from May to Hollins, first down and 10 at the New England 31. I mean, I'll usually come up with a couple of nice predictions that come true every game, regardless if we're doing Mariners or if we're doing Ducks or if we're doing NFL. You know, but again, sometimes if you just watch a team enough, you have an idea. You know, if you can get in the head of the offensive coordinator and you've been watching how Josh McDaniels calls games, you have an idea of how things could potentially go. History repeats itself. You just have to notice the cues and the clues. 4-yard pass there to Ramondre Stevenson. Roquan Smith with the tackle. Second down and 6 at the New England 35. And I'm glad this game ended up being close. I figured it would be. Didn't anticipate Lamar getting hurt, but Huntley has done a great job. Shotgun set, May, short middle to Stephon Diggs. He's having himself a fucking game. 9 targets, 8 receptions, 117 yards. Marlon Humphrey with the earlier interception in the game, but not there. 9-yard pass complete. First down, Patriots. Slow and steady wins the race. First down and 10 at the New England 44. It feels like it's almost inevitable they're going to be able to get the field goal, but if they get the touchdown, that might be enough to win the game. That was an amazing catch by Diggs. You know, and again, everywhere Diggs goes, you know, he makes the team better. Vikings, Bills, and now the Patriots. And even though he may not be a top 5 wide receiver in the league, he still plays like a top 5, top 10 pretty often. May going deep. Booty is there and dropped at the very end. How did that happen? Does he have a concussion? Is he out? What happened there? So Booty injured on the play. I don't know if he got concussed there, but had the ball and then got batted away. Incomplete pass there. Look at Booty go up one-on-one on Marlon Humphrey. Jumps up at the... he gets dragged down, has the ball. And the ball never gets settled, and Humphrey just bats it away. Crazy play there from May to Booty, and then Humphrey having the awareness just to bat that ball away. Kind of reminded me like when you play beer pong and someone's trying to hit you with the bounce, and then they think you're not paying attention, and then you got to swat that ball away to prevent them from winning. And Marlon Humphrey came up big there. Just a little unfortunate for Booty and May with that combo there. 2nd down and 10 at the New England 44. We got less than 3 minutes to go, or around 3 minutes to go here in the 4th quarter. Shotgun set. May short right to Austin Hooper, the tight end. 8-yard pass. 3rd down and 2 at the Baltimore 48. Definitely should have been PI. He already was wrapping his arms around him, and it's kind of weird, how certain refs will call certain things and they, let certain things go. But definitely it was PI on Marlon Humphrey. Yeah, May looks like he's going to be a top 10 quarterback moving forward for the rest of his career. As long as he has Josh McDaniels, being able to mentor him, and they keep drafting well. Obviously they need to beef up the O-line and the defense a little bit more going into next year. But, to go from a team that wins, 4 games a year to potentially 11 to 13 wins, that's huge. And Drake May, short left to Kyle Williams, incomplete. 4th down and 2 at the Baltimore 48. Shotgun set. May short left to Diggs. 20-yard pass. 1st down, Patriots. 10 targets for Diggs, 9 receptions, 138 yards. And you got to remember, Josh Allen really wasn't a name until Diggs came, to give him that continuity and chemistry of a top-end wide receiver. And obviously now he's at the point of his career where, he doesn't need Diggs anymore, Josh Allen. But obviously Drake May, needs that type of guy. And luckily he was able to find a top-end wide receiver early in his career. Otherwise, we might have seen Drake May play like he did last year. But Diggs has been balling. Shotgun set. May short right to Mac Hollins, who was someone that normally makes some big plays for New England this season as well. 6-yard pass. 2nd down and 4 at the Baltimore 21. And it's almost inevitable. It feels like New England's going to score a touchdown. If Baltimore's D can step up and force the field goal, that would give them at least a chance to be able to get a field goal and win. But feels kind of too much New England at this point. Yeah, regardless if it's Kirk Cousins or, one of the backups, like when we saw in the, Minneapolis Miracle, made Josh Allen a name, and obviously really helping out Drake May in his development. And obviously, good role players like Kyle Williams, Mac Hollins, these are guys that normally aren't really names, but, May has been able to distribute the football pretty evenly. And Ramondre Stevenson, touchdown, Patriots. And you might have left him too much time, but they like that. Nice job there by Drake May and Ramondre Stevenson on this drive. 21-yard touchdown run. Extra point is up and good. Borregales, now it's 28-24. Do the Ravens have enough to be able to get a touchdown to win? Field goal doesn't do them any good. They would still be down by 1 if they did that. So this is going to be tough. We'll see how heavy New England blitzes here in the last 2:07. It might take a miracle for the Ravens to be able to win this, but if they go to Zay Flowers, they will have a chance. If they don't have an opportunity to get to Zay, this one's over. Yeah, 2-point conversion by Ramondre was huge. That's pretty much the difference in the game, right? Because if it's 27-24, you feel confident that, Huntley could probably end up getting, them to field goal range with 2:07 left. But now, putting him in a spot where they have to get a touchdown, that might be a little bit too much for them to do. And I had a feeling Ramondre Stevenson would be doing something today, and he blesses you on the thumb with possibly the game-winning touchdown. Nice job, Ramondre Stevenson. Big play. Borregales kicks off 50 yards. And a nice 17-yard return there by LaJohntay Wester. And that's going to be first down and 10 at the Baltimore 32. But if you want to win the game, this is where you go. You go Zay Flowers. Again, you can go down to Mark Andrews. You can look for Rashad Bateman or DeAndre Hopkins. But again, you got to be able to find, with 2:07 left, that doesn't give you a whole lot of time to be able to, be patient with the run game to be able to get there. Well, we know King Henry can go off for a 20 to 40-yard run. There's no doubt about that. And a little screen pass there. I don't like that play call. And again, a lot of the reasons why the Ravens lose games in the fourth quarter is bad coaching and bad play calling. Loss of 5 from Huntley to Rasheen Ali. Why the hell would you run a screen pass to fucking Ali right there with 2 and some change left? You want to go deep down the field, not throwing a fucking screen pass. You want to go to Zay, try to, get PI on the defense, and see if he can actually make a big play. Just off the play calling alone, the Ravens might be fucked. 28-24, New England. There's a chance. I think right now they're starting to get better in December. They're not the best team in the NFC, this season. But again, the Seahawks and the Rams are better, but the Eagles are starting to close the gap. And if they can get the offensive line healthy with Lane Johnson and others, there's a chance that they could at least get to the Super Bowl and have a chance to repeat. But like I said, if it ends up being like Eagles-Bills, the Bills could win it, if it ends up being that. So, but I think right now Rams, Seahawks, Rams, Eagles are at the top. The wild cards are going to be the Bears and the Niners, to pull off the upset. Packers and Lions are trending downwards, and the Panthers and Bucks aren't good enough to win a playoff game. Then you got the Bills and the Broncos and the Patriots at the top, but then the Jags are right there with them now. And then obviously you have the Texans, floating. We know they have a great defense, offense with CJ Stroud kind of inconsistent. And then we know, Steelers and Ravens probably won't win a playoff game like the Bucks and the Panthers, but they're just still trying to get in. Fumble! And now the game is over. Big fumble there. And again, if you end up fumbling, unfortunately, Zay Flowers, unbelievable. And again, the guy that you need to get the ball to ends up getting the ball punched out from behind. And that's kind of been the story of the Ravens with Derrick Henry and others. Sometimes it's a great play by the defense, like it was right there. But again, you can't fumble there. And a big recovery. Zay Flowers, how could you? Marcus Jones, I see you. And now that is game. Yeah, Rams-Eagles in the NFC Championship game or Seahawks-Eagles would be very, very sexy and interesting, And again, no one really knows how it all will play out. It kind of feels like to me if the Bills make the AFC, as the champion, they are the only team I think that could win it all. I don't think if Denver made it or New England made it, it would be, they would have to play perfect. New England might have a better chance than even Denver because they're more well-rounded, but, Buffalo to me, with Josh Allen, even though their run defense stinks, their pass defense is decent. Allen and Cook are playing great. So I still think that that's the team to beat in the AFC, then the Patriots, and then obviously the Jags and the Broncos as you go down the list. And then obviously Seahawks, Rams, and Eagles are the best. The two teams that could upset, teams at the top would be the Bears and the Niners because people are sleeping on them. Packers, Lions are going on a downhill trend. And, again, like I mentioned, Panthers and Bucks are just not good enough to win against anybody. That's tough. And normally Zay isn't the guy to blow the game there late. But again, sometimes you just got to give credit to the New England defense or the defense going against the Ravens. But again, coaching and play calling have been kind of the issue for the Ravens not being able to make the Super Bowl, over the Chiefs or the Bills. And again, no Lamar. Huntley tried to do his best, but just a little too late. Shotgun set, Ramondre Stevenson. Nice 11-yard gain since Travion Henderson got hurt. First down and 10 at the Baltimore 21. And now that's going to be timeout, Baltimore. So you got 4 leagues that you're doing in Fantasy, Chief. Do you have a chance to win a championship in any of them or no? I mean, we know Eagles defense is good. Their special teams is good. Offense hasn't been as good. Normally ranked 20th to 28th in most of the offensive categories. But with that being said, they could still, score enough with Jalen and Saquon and Dallas Goedert and A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. It's not like they lost any of those guys. The reason the offense hasn't been good is because the offensive line has been hurt all year. And if the offensive line was healthy, they probably would be a top 10 offensive team like last year where they were one of the top dogs. So, but they are starting to kind of hit a rhythm and a groove. So even though I like the Seahawks and Rams more than the Eagles, I wouldn't be shocked, if the Philadelphia Eagles found their way representing the NFC, but I am kind of rooting for the Hawks and the Rams, to get to the NFC Championship game to play each other. That would make for the best matchup, in my opinion. And then, seeing Buffalo go against New England, in the AFC Championship game would be sexy, unless Denver can, get there as well. And then I think the sleeper team, obviously in the AFC, would probably be 2 of them, just like the Bears and the Niners, the Jags and the Texans. Nobody expects those teams to, to do anything, right? And the Chargers usually choke in the playoffs, but maybe this is the year they go a little bit further. So, even though people aren't talking about the Chargers, or the Texans, or the Jags, you're starting to see that they're catching up to, the Bills and the Broncos and the Patriots. It's getting very close now, based on like the power rankings in the AFC. And, we know the Seahawks, Rams, and Eagles are the best. But if they play bad, the Niners and the Bears are 2 teams that could, potentially, do some damage, even though you don't really know what version of the Niners or the Bears that you would get. It changes every week. Same thing with the Chargers, as well as the Texans and the Jags. What version of those teams are you going to get? But those 5 teams that I mentioned that are kind of on the outside looking in, as far as people having belief in them, it's possible the Jags could overachieve and make the AFC Championship game. It's possible the Bears could get hot and could end up beating one of the top teams. And we saw how the Bears played the Eagles in Philadelphia on Black Friday. They ran the ball, played great defense, and beat them. And they just beat the Packers. So, the Bears with Ben Johnson are starting to get hot at the right time. Nice 16-yard run there by Drake May. Instead of getting in the end zone, he falls down and gets the first down, and that should be game. First and goal at the Baltimore 9. Tick, tick, tick. Clock is running out. I think the only team that could win it all, is the Buffalo Bills, Josh Allen. Because they got James Cook. Secondary is good. The only thing shitty about Buffalo is their run defense, which is like bottom 3. But other than that, I trust Josh Allen more than any other quarterback in the AFC. I mean, I do like Drake May a lot, and Bo Nix just doesn't have enough to work with. And I like Trevor Lawrence and Justin Herbert, but they're just, what are you going to get from week in, week out? You just don't know if you can trust them, right? But I think Buffalo, to me, looks like the only team that will potentially win it all on the AFC side. And then after Buffalo, maybe New England. And then on the NFC side, I could see Seattle winning it all. I could see the Rams winning it all. I could see Philadelphia winning it all. And then that's it. And then I think the Niners and Bears could be spoilers. And then obviously Packers, Lions trending downwards. And then the Bucks and Panthers have no shot. So, we'll see, on how it plays out. You got 3 teams that can win it all, in my opinion, on the NFC side: Rams, Seahawks, Eagles. And then I got maybe 2 on the AFC side with the Bills at 1 and maybe Patriots at 2. So 5 teams that can win it all, and then everyone else would be a huge surprise, in my opinion. Final score, 28-24. That's a way to bounce back after losing to Buffalo and whatnot. So, again, it wasn't the prettiest game. But again, Drake May and Josh McDaniels are very happy that they have Stephon Diggs there. And again, just like the Bears and the Niners, we'll wait to see what the Jags, and the Chargers do. They could end up spoiling someone's party. Well, I love you guys, and I appreciate you guys very much. I'll be live tomorrow for the Niners versus the Colts. Should be a close one just like this. And I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your Sunday evening. I'm going to go take the pup on a walk. And I'm really looking forward to Monday Night Football. Come through and hang out with your boy. Like, sub, donate, comment, share. If you haven't smashed that like button yet, please do on your way out. And I got one question for you. Who talk sports like us? Your boy Orion. Final score, Patriots 28, Ravens 24. And I am out. Gang.